Members of City Council, please attend a call meeting of the City Council to be held in the 6th floor conference room, 801 Crawford Street, 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 5th, 2015, for the purpose of a public work session. In addition, you may consider a motion to go into closed meeting by order of the mayor. Mr. Cherry?
Here.
Dr. Edmonds?
Here.
Mr. Meeks?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Simmons? Dr. Whitaker?
Present.
Mayor Wright?
Here. All right. Thank you. Mr. Manager, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right.
How are you?
Okay. Let's start this off with your presentation
Yes,
of
sir.
the latest work that
Yes,
you've
sir.
done, and then we'll just jump right in.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you, first of all, for accommodating your schedules for this extra meeting, for allowing us the time to rework this budget and put it in, hopefully, into a format that you're looking for. Let me say thanks to department heads, to appointees, to constitutional officers, and to staff that has been working hard for the last week to revisit their budgets and make cuts as we requested. My hope is that you can finalize your budget decision tonight, and so that we can get the ordinances put together in the next 24 hours, which is really our time frame for being able to get those advertised, and then it would be on your agenda for next week for adoption. And one of the reasons that's important, or probably the most important reason that it's on your agenda to adopt next week, is that there is a state code that says we need to give to the school board the amount of their funding by May 15th. So we're on a pretty tight schedule to get that done.
But that don't mean we got to, our budget goes through June 30th.
That's correct.
So you could guarantee them how much you can give them without passing our budget.
The alternative would be to break it into pieces, but traditionally we've adopted it as one
Yeah.
budget.
So we should not feel bound by that. So that's my point.
Yes, sir. I took the parameters that you gave us last week and asked general fund departments, constitutional officers, state appointees to develop new options for budget reductions based on a 6.5%, an 8%, and a 12.5% reduction to their bottom line.
So Brendan, what'd you do with when you left the last meeting? I'd given you something new. I thought we were going to start from there. Did you use that for springboard? Or
I did. Again, I used this, and the reason I picked 6.5%, 8%, and 12.5% was because at 6.5%, there was a number discussed here at this table of between 6% and 7%. 8% was what I thought would be the target that would get us to the a penny and a third that you said was your target, and 12.5% was really a deeper than necessary cut in the event that we added things back in. So that's why I.
But it had, my proposal had the cuts in it. So you went and got other cuts.
Well, we started, to backtrack a little bit, what we talked about last week was again based on the manager's March 30th budget. And in order to get...
Which we all said.
Right.
Right.
And in order to get to, $10.8 million in cuts, I asked each of these groups to offer up cuts of 6%, 8.5%, and 12% as options to get us to that cut.
But the sheet we were working off of that you brought back to that night had 11.4 in cuts already in it, and I brought back 10.8 of that, I think it was. So that's what I'm missing.
Okay.
Well, we also asked them to go back and tell us what 6% from all the.
We should have two parallel paths here. We got one baseline that Councilman Cherry and most of us agree with, the $11 million cut without cutting the schools, and then using that, and then adding in some of those other things that we asked, and then the risk management and all of that. So we're going to look at that. So
Yes,
hopefully
sir.
you're prepared to talk about that.
Yes.
And then we want to look at, because we also asked you to go in and take a deeper dive as far as asking everybody to put a little skin in the game and I think we asked 6.5 or something. So the 3 different models you got here are fine. So if you do that, we still have on the table what we left here last week,
Yes, sir.
and I think that's what Councilman Sherry.
Okay, that's what I'm-
I think we're getting there. And this is not a long presentation because I tried to keep it short so that, we could spend more time in discussion than me presenting things. So if you'd allow me just to.
I will, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm gonna be
thanks.
quiet for a little while.
So I did receive some suggestions from a couple of you about things you wanted to hold harmless. I also got a suggestion from the mayor and Councilman Meeks, which we looked at in terms of the waste management fund transfer. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And so what's in these 3 different options are the column that's in red ink is what is proposed from each of those departments as a reduction to their budget. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes highlighting what those items are. Now, some of these were major changes that, with the exception of the first one, but I put it on this major change sheet, that affect the budget as a whole, but not a specific department. In other words, it's not a service impact issue. But I want to make sure you know that there's nothing in here that reduces the appropriation to the school. There's nothing in here, even though there's an additional $1 million that's coming from the state. I haven't touched that. I've held that harmless because that was the consensus of this group. So it's not factored into any of these reductions.
Just so I understand the columns, the first 6.5 is what you asked, and the red is what they submitted?
Yes, sir. The 6.5 in black and the 8 in black and 12.5 in black is just a simple calculation of
The
the
level
amount.
funding was what we agreed to. The additional $1 million, is that, I mean, what's?
If you want to replace the local, the general fund appropriation with state revenue, then that'll be an
level
action you
funding,
need
though,
to
right?
direct me to take. But I haven't included that in these cuts.
The
Let's-
census was
Let's let him go through this.
Yeah.
And we know we got $1 million here, $1 million there, and $1 million over there. We'll come back to, probably going back to where Paige started out with his initial question. So let's get him go through this piece here, and then we'll
Okay,
start slicing.
so some of the things that affect the bottom line that are in the bottom category as other cuts are things that I want to highlight as some major changes that we put in here. Well, first of all, as we talked about before, this takes out any wage increase for employees, a step increase for public safety, and cost of living increase for retirees. It includes deferring $786,141 in CIP maintenance projects. Now, the big item in that CIP that would be deferred
The roof job.
in this budget would be the West Haven roof, but I think we're on track, or I think the schools are on track to have an end of year savings that you could reappropriate sufficient to cover that from FY15 funds. So it doesn't
Any
actually
idea how
have to
much
wait.
savings they got there?
I don't know yet, but I'm pretty sure you're going to have that much.
Okay.
It eliminates the 3 new positions. We had talked about that before. So that's the purchasing position, the court clerk position, and the assessor position. It appropriates $500,000 of risk management fund balance to the FY16 risk management budget. So basically what I'm doing is reducing the transfer from the general fund to the risk management fund by $500,000. And we're transferring $1 million from the waste management fund balance back to the general fund. Now, these are one-time actions, these last 2. And they're not sustainable, repeatable items, but they're one-time actions.
Well, the waste management one is because of the recycling. As long as we recycle, as long as citizens continue to do and perform at the level we are, then we may be able to make this type of draw each year. So I
Depending
wouldn't
on how
call that
that
a
balance-
one-time
Yes, sir.
But go ahead, finish.
Depending on how
your-
that balance adds up. Okay. The 6.5 option, there are going to be two pages of highlights of the 6.5 option. The 6.5 option gets you to a 4.28 cent tax rate increase. In other words, it reduces about $8.7 million from the proposed budget and gets you to a new tax rate of $1.31, or that's a whole number of 4 cents over the existing tax rate. It, as I mentioned before, includes the elimination of employee raises and retiree cost of living adjustments. It implements a hiring freeze, except for mission-critical positions. Now, this is how this is different from the previous consideration of hiring, of the freeze. In the previous iterations of this budget, we had built in $2.4 million in vacancy savings. This time, I had the departments to look at which positions they could freeze, and those frozen vacancies are in the red columns. And so that we're not double counting the savings on the positions, I've taken, you can see the very bottom line, line 57, puts back in $2.4 million that had been built in for vacancy savings for FY16. The 6.5 reduction.
Brandon?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you explain to me what mission critical is
Sure.
to public safety versus some other department?
Okay. It includes, it does not include mission critical does not include public safety. So there are public safety positions in this hiring freeze. Mission critical is the city manager position, the city attorney position, the CFO. Even though the police chief's not in that calculation yet, that position will be vacant. IT director, same with economic development director. E911 dispatchers, I took those out and considered those mission critical. Assistant building official, we have more workload than we have a signatory to be able to approve plans. So I consider that mission critical. A deputy city clerk, there are 2 traffic engineering positions that by the Federal Highway Administration we need to have based on the number of signals and devices in the city. So I considered those as mission critical. But I did not consider the other public safety positions. So I figured that's going to be an issue you may want to talk about. If you want to add those back in, that's going to be about $2 million. So that's about 3 cents to put all of the public safety positions back in.
That's about 2 million of this 2.4.
Yes. Well, the 2.4, again, didn't account for all of the vacancy savings. It was just a factor that we used.
And I think one of the other things we asked staff to go back, bring us back how much in dollars was the public safety piece of the freeze, so we could then make
about
a
$2 million.
determination of that, because we may do some percentage, even though we may not want to freeze them all. But you're saying you froze them all except with your definition of mission critical?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
It includes reduction in marketing for the museums. It includes elimination of sponsorships for the PIT, the Downtown Norfolk Commission, that's our participation in the Grand Illumination Parade, and the Cock Island Race. It reduces funding for the derelict structure program.
Brandon, will you go back to Christmas for a minute? What about Winter Wonderland?
It's not in there, right?
I mean, it's not in there.
It's
We wouldn't
not
have it.
funded.
It's not funded.
That's correct.
So there's no Christmas at all.
No, there are Christmas lights, but the budget that we had when we started was going to reduce Winter Wonderland funds.
That's a revenue generator, though.
There are admissions for that, yes, sir.
And
Not to mention-
meal
We're going to need to add
tax,
some back in to put that in.
meal tax and other things.
Those are certainly attendant revenues that would go with Winter Wonderland.
put that one on the list to throw back in. Go ahead.
Okay, hold that thought. It reduces hours and repurposes staff and activities for 2 rec centers as we transition to fully ramping up the Portsmouth Boulevard Recreation Facility. This consolidates some of those recreation services to that new facility. They'll still be available for scheduled use for the gym and other uses of the facilities, but the hours will be reduced at those 2 recreation facilities. It includes the elimination of rent for the office space for economic development. Reduces funding to civic organizations. This is by the amount that, I know, Mr. Moody, you said you wanted to hold that harmless, but I put in there what we talked about last week, which was 10% to those civic orgs, a reduction of 10%, and then eliminating the $25,000 to the Portsmouth Partnership.
So this reduced terminology is the 10%?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
It delays the city's comp plan. We had a contract amount in there for next fiscal year. That'll be pushed off, which will slow the start of the comp plan revision. It eliminates the federal lobbyist. It defers vehicle replacements. It reduces take-home vehicles, the take-home vehicle program to just officers that live in the city of Portsmouth. That was about a $100,000 cut. And it defers IT upgrades and significant hardware replacements out of IT. So that's a 6.5 option.
Brandon?
Yes, ma'am.
The IT, does that have anything to do with dispatch, or is that strictly
No, ma'am.
financial?
No,
IT?
those are hardware and software upgrades that are generally universal to the city's network.
How about the radio improvement for the police?
If that's in the CIP,
That's in the
then it's still in the
CIP,
CIP.
Okay, so that hadn't been messed with. How about Sports Hall of Fame?
That's in the 12.5. I'll get to that in a second. It's in there in 6.5. Funding is in there in 6.5.
And the reason why I ask about that is, understand there's a possibility that the state, since it is Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, that the state may consider funding that. And it's my understanding our city delegation, one of the rare times that all of them going to get together and support that effort. Have you heard that, Mayor? You haven't heard that?
Anytime we can replace local revenue with state revenue.
Sherry hasn't heard it
You heard
either.
that now? Okay.
Nobody's heard that the state might step up?
Well, I think this is for, my understanding was.
Wishful
not-
thinking.
No, it wasn't necessarily this political state delegation, but the Commonwealth of Virginia
Well,
absorbing it into the museum
Well,
system, their museum
that's what I
system.
mean. They were supportive of that.
Yeah.
The General Assembly would have to
To do it, yeah.
do it. So that's
Make
what
it an
I'm,
agency.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the right, I think that's the right term.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
The 8% option includes all of the things in the 6.5% reduction. It also includes a reduction in our asphalt contract by about 3.5%. So that would mean some fewer streets paved. It reduces contract funding for landscaping and increases the mowing cycle from 7 days to 14 days for our rights-of-way and public areas. It eliminates the funding for the e-Civis grant system. It eliminates the lease for the fire administration offices, so we would move that to a city-owned building. It reduces funding for monument restoration and exhibits in the museums. And it reduces part-time positions and programs in part-time positions in the corresponding programs for libraries, museums, parks, and recreation. That gets us to a little over a 3-cent tax rate increase, or a new tax rate of $1.31. The last is the much deeper cuts. This gets us to an increase of $1.62 and a new tax rate of $1.29. Includes all the items under the previous options. It includes additional reduction to paving and concrete contracts. This would reduce those contracts by about 11%. It includes additional cut to the police department, including 8 filled positions, although those are non-sworn positions, plus 10 overhire police officer positions. Now, the 8 non-sworn are fingerprint examiner, a crime prevention specialist, the admin coordinator in investigations, property and evidence technician, 1 animal control officer, 2 security guards, and a police records tech. It defers for the entire fiscal year the IT firewall initiative. It results in the closure of Manor Branch Library and Willett Hall and eliminates those filled positions. It reduces all museum hours except for Children's Museum, keeps those hours constant. And the funding for the Sports Hall of Fame would be eliminated. So these are, we're focusing really only on FY16, and so I think we need to think strategically. These last 2 slides are just some things that I think we need to think about as we are focused on just next year. We need to still keep in mind that there are lasting impacts to these cuts. So we need to revisit our organizational structure, looking at evaluating garage services for a reduction opportunity, consolidation of city park, and right-sizing golf operations. We need to evaluate all of our manpower to see if there's an opportunity for centralizing functions, looking at the supervisory structure to make sure it's right, eliminating redundancies again with the schools wherever possible, and evaluating, looking at time and attendance technology versus the manual entry that's done by clerical staff. And finally, looking at the retirement incentive program. We haven't done this since 2010, and I don't think we had too many takers at that time. We had a much more successful early retirement incentive option in 2008. I think we need to look at that next year. And also look at additional building renovation projects so that we can reduce our lease space and move those operations to the greatest extent possible into the buildings that we already own. So again, I just wanted to introduce that and be glad to work through your questions and concerns.
Before we get off of this, first of all, this matrix here, this is a list of all departments, all constitutional officers, and everybody taking this cut, or is there somebody not on this list?
Well, they're on the list. There may be zeros if, for example, we either didn't get a submission or we
36.
We're legally obligated to meet the match for our behavioral health care systems and for our social services functions. So we did not touch the general fund portion of those operations.
So when I see, you say line item what, Danny?
Like 36.
36. Oh, yeah, the Commissioner of Revenue here, there's dashes in each one of them. There's no opportunity to cut, or he's not willing to take a cut?
He did not submit a cut.
He did not submit a cut.
He submitted a response, but did not reduce his budget.
And the treasurer has got something, where is the clerk of
J&D
court?
court, nothing.
All right, where's the sheriff?
Sheriff is line 44.
All right, so there's a blank here on the 6.5%, a blank on the 8%, and then $35,000 on the 12.5%.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
That was the amount that he offered under the 12.5% cut.
So, okay, so he's not gonna take it. All right. Juvenile court services dash and juvenile domestic relation, okay. So it's not really a true cut.
Can I ask what one of these is?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Brandon, what is line 51, Comprehensive Service Act Fund? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
Sure. It's generally considered part of social services, but in the mid-'90s, the state created the Comprehensive Services Act for basically carving out a separate funding mechanism for services to youth. And it's for youth and children. And so...
So it's state money and federal
Yes,
money and...
yes. The operation is in social services, but it is identified as a separate budget category.
So there's no local money in that number?
No, sir.
So secondly, if you go back to the matrix, and the column to the left of the red is what the number would be if everybody bellied up to the percentage that was asked.
Yes, sir, that
At the very
is
bottom-
just a straight computation.
Understand.
of the
What would that be on the tax rate? You've got, like, in the red column, you show reduced 12.72, which means we'd still have a tax increase of 4.28. If everybody would have hit the number you put to the left, what would that be? The $9,061,000 instead of the $8,712,000. What would that be on the tax rate?
About 3 cents, I would say. Maybe
It'd been
somewhere
nice to put that-
between 2 and 3.
I would have put that by each one of them to show that if everybody would have participated at the anticipated level, here's where we would have been instead of,
Yeah, it would just be whatever 9,061,000 is divided by 685,000, which is
So 8%
for a
is
penny?
almost even?
Pardon me?
What is 8% on the tax rate? Is that right at almost even, correct? Maybe a,
no.
No,
Increase from 3.39 at the bottom.
Well, that's a.
No, I'm saying
he's right. He's looking
black.
at the black
I'm
number,
looking
the
at his
10,000,000
black-
nine.
black number.
That was pretty close.
Oh, 10.9 versus 9 million.
about 0.001 or something.
I'd have to plug in the
Oh, you're picking $1 million.
685 to
That's
get.
$1
It would be
million
very
delta
close to
there.
that. Yes, sir.
There's a $1.6 million difference at
About a
the
one-
8%.
About a 1.
7,
That's it.
7.7.
So we want
1.6
divide
million.
10.952 by 685,000.
Okay. Okay, so I would think as an option, we probably need to put that in there. So if we tell them this is the cut you're going to get, then they know what their cut's going to be. This was an ask, and it doesn't look like everybody wanted to participate. So we probably need that. Dr.
Some
Whitaker.
can.
Yeah, Mr. Godfrey, there's some departments that in the 6.5 column is actually greater than 6.5. Is that what was reported, or is that part of something that?
That's
you did?
because, with the exception of the mission-critical ones, we added all the vacancy savings into these numbers, into these department reductions. So in some cases, the vacancy savings were well in excess of what a 6.5% cut would be.
Okay.
Like public libraries is almost $100,000.
I should say
difference.
frozen vacancies as opposed to vacancy savings to distinguish between the two.
Right there, yeah.
So that's the difference in line 21,
Almost $100,000 difference.
general service property management? Is that where the difference is counted for?
Yes, sir. There are significant frozen vacancies
I mean-
in general services.
Your mosquito control was 943, it's 35,000. 100 grand in engineering. 600 in garage services.
What does that, even though it's a small number, what does that 35,000, how does that impact mosquito control?
Employees.
One position.
Take out a position.
Yes, sir.
One position, what is
I
that
think that's
position?
mission critical.
You live in Churchton, man?
And
I agree.
It is the one position.
One position.
There is only one position.
the vacant position.
Okay,
It's the
there is
vacant
one
position.
filled position. There must be one vacant position that would not be filled.
Yeah,
And it's-
It would be held vacant.
that's
Be
critical.
held vacant.
Okay.
So if we go back.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
If we go back to what Mr. Cherry raised at the beginning of the meeting, that what he proposed at that level, what we see here in these increases would be incorporated in the vacancies that was part of his proposal. So these increases that we're seeing, that would be incorporated into the vacancies that were part of his proposal.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
You're saying that these amounts include the vacancies?
Yes, sir. The red numbers include basically freezing vacancies at the last vacancy report.
Right, and that was, I believe it was a 1.6, was that the 1.6 million figure?
Yeah, that
It was more than that.
1.6 was the raises. The vacancies was 2 something?
Yeah, 1.6 was the raises
Raises.
here, 1.65.
Let me ask Judy if you can, she has the latest vacancy report.
Freeze vacancies was also 1.64, yeah.
Yeah, that's here.
I mean, back in March, it was.
So you're right.
The vacancies totaled about 4 million, if I remember correctly.
So back
But
to, I think we're getting
it's gone
back-
up a little bit since then.
Brandon, we're getting back to what I think Paige already started. If we go back to the sheet that you gave us with the potential service cuts, the last page, page 8, potential cuts were $12.7 million. And backing out the school portion, $5 million, put us at 7.698. And this included all of these things up here being cut except the schools, correct?
Yes.
Right. And so
It did.
if we
I guess
take-
I'm on a different, I mean, I kind of abandoned that.
Understand, you can't do that because you
And
work
we
for us,
started
and we
with-
told you not to do that. You gotta get back on the boat with us.
No, but I mean, all of those things, you said you didn't like those things that totaled up to those cuts. So I've given you new options for getting to that total.
I got it, understand. So this initial one we had last week with the spreadsheet totaled $7.8 million in cuts, and it left the schools whole.
Right.
So that puts you, if you look at these percentages here, between the 6.5% and the 8% cut.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
But this one doesn't touch, there's certain things that are not being touched in your matrix that you have up here. And I think we wanted to go through and cherry pick the ones
Because I had
that we
suggested a
didn't
couple.
want to put back in, like HRT or
Yeah.
closing Willard Hall or something like that, and finding funding elsewhere to be able to backfill in those areas.
Right, because I suggested we put a few things back in. I'm trying to find my email now because I can't find my hard copy. Thought I brought it with me.
The library was one.
Table and do that.
Yeah, I just want to see how we want to attack this. He's now presented us with a matrix with these three different cuts here. First of all, I'm not pleased that everybody's not participating here and these things here. And second of all, I don't know how we reconcile this with where we were last week. So do you propose a methodology?
I think we have to run down the list, just
Okay,
like
I got it.
Brandon had requested, what's off the table, what's on the table. It's probably easier to address what we don't want to cut.
We had a baseline,
Yeah, that's
Mr.
what I'm
Cherry's, and
What I submitted was the list that he gave us that night, that he sent to us. It was, which totaled 11.24 cents, was when it was a built-in cuts. That had 4 cents for equalization. I had 1.43 cents for eliminating new vehicles. 0.47 cents for museums, for a total of 17.14 cents.
Okay.
Cents, not dollars, cents. Then I recommended that we put back the cemetery maintenance, which was 0.04 cents. Put back the money for disabled veterans' personal property tax relief.
Yes, sir.
Which was
About a $250,000.
Which was 33 cents, 0.33 cents. Put back the HRT money, which was 0.51. Put back the community funding, the IT director, and the assessor position. Those totaled to 1 1.29 cents,
Okay.
and which left you with 15.85 cents.
Right.
With roughly $1.25 tax increase, something like that.
What were those?
$1.27 to $1.28.
To $1.28. One penny, 1.25 cents
Right. Yes, sir.
additional.
Right. And just so you'll know, the
Less than 2 cent increase.
disabled veterans tax relief I didn't cut that out.
Okay.
So that's in there.
In the matrix.
Yes, sir. I'm just trying to go down the list from Councilman Cherry's April 28th, 8:37 a.m. email.
Okay.
The HRT funding is in there. In other words, it's not reduced. The community funding I did cut, and I identified
Yeah, I
that.
got that.
The IT director position is in there. It's a mission critical, so that wouldn't be frozen anyway. The assessor position, that was a new position, and I did include that as one of all those 3 new positions. I included that in there as being cut. In other words, not being funded. So, and then your cemetery maintenance, you mentioned
What's
cemetery
the
maintenance.
significance of HRT? I missed that.
Their increase.
Increase, they gave all the cities an
All the
increase.
cities got an increase.
That increase from there.
Well, you know, now that we're talking about HRT, I did a little research on Suffolk's expenditure, and I invite y'all to go on the website. They have Virginia transit system, and their budget line item is a little over $1 million. We're approaching close to $3 million. And I also noticed one of our routes goes to Harborview, which I don't know if that's included in our figure, but I don't know why we'd be sending customers to Harborview. But I think we need to look at an alternate source. We're spending a lot of money for public transportation that's underutilized. So.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with you, Bill. When we talked about that before, about the buses and all that,
Right.
but in the meantime, I don't want the service to be reduced for those people who do use it. On whether we need to, we talked to HRT about getting smaller buses or what, or how we save money on that. But yeah, if we don't, because you're at HRT, they gave every city an increase, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So this wasn't like you.
What are they going to? What routes are they going to reduce? Because half the time you see the buses is 3 people up there,
I don't disagree with
or
you.
2. Sometimes they're just riding around empty.
Exactly, Danny.
I don't disagree with you.
If we go and plan out through our planning folks each year what we're authorizing HRT the routes to run, they're going to run those routes. They agree up front with what we're going to do and the routes we're going to serve and the time we're going to serve them, and then they'll perform to what we tell them.
Yeah, but you got a body over there.
Hold it. So whether or not you want to jump out in front and think, well, more people might be on the 45 instead of the 44, and you want to cut out the 44, you can do any of those things you want to do if you want to cut out a route or diminish that. Or you can get out of the HRT partnership altogether and you can do your own, which is a crazy move, but you've got that option to do that. But
Crazy move, and then
No,
Suffolk's
no.
paying a third of what we're paying.
Suffolk has a rural area that has a whole lot of buses going to areas that were not being utilized. And HRT recommended to Suffolk because it wasn't a good move. Phil Chiquette made that recommendation.
We've got a whole lot of buses underutilized.
I don't think any of us are disagreeing. We're saying you're either going to use the service and you're going to go and say, well, we're only going to run certain lines through Portsmouth and go back and tell them, and somebody's got to feed that to staff. Which lines are they? And be prepared for the kids that are trying to get from Churchland to TCC, or the folks trying to get from work from downtown to somewhere else, or the connector route that connects them with Norfolk to get them to work in Chesapeake. You got to go in there and make those cuts if that's what you want to do. But just to say I saw a bus with nobody on it, what does that do for us? That's an authorized route. Somebody may need that route at working hours during the morning or in the afternoon, and that thing's running every day, every 30 minutes, every half hour or hour, or whatever the frequency is. So I heard what you're saying, but you're not being rational with what you're saying, because those routes are possible and needed. So either you cancel a route or you don't, and see what those savings are. I mean, that's how you do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mayor, you got my proposal, which is $1.15 tax increase.
Mr. Chair.
Which is a 1.15 penny.
Right,
One
and it
cent-
took all of this.
1 cent tax
Okay.
increase.
Can you give that breakdown that got us down to the reducing the 17 cents? You said the equalization, new vehicles, the museums, it was one more. I think.
The equalization was 4 cents. The new vehicles was 1.43 cents. The museum was 0.47 cents. The other 1.24 was in the sheet that Brandon handed out.
The vacancies.
Yeah, that was included in that. And so that brought you to 17.14 cents.
What about the risk management? We just had to stay away from that?
That's a great spot to get some money. You know, I wanted to get $2 million from risk management, and it seemed like the consensus wasn't there, so
I'm with you.
You with me?
Absolutely.
So-
I think listening
it's
to
I think it's
staff and I think
overstated.
our attorney and some others just cautioned us. They didn't say not to do it, they just cautioned. I think we were looking at, what, 4 million or?
Well, I wanted $2 million out of there
Yeah.
because the last CAFR shows us 8.1 million. I think it was unrestricted money sitting in there.
It's only 3.8 now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we used 3.8 last.
No, it's only 3.9.
3.9. No.
How much is left in there?
You're talking about the general fund.
No, the risk management.
You're asking what is the balance in the risk management
Yes.
fund right now? I mean, the last audited number we
Right.
have is June 30th of 14, and that's the $8 million.
That's 8.1.
But where we are today is less than that. I don't know what it is, but you know, we felt comfortable going up to $500,000 in reducing the general fund transfer to the risk management fund. In other words, using some fund balance from the risk management fund for its operations for next year up to $500,000. Did not feel comfortable going further than that.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Okay, go ahead, Doc.
when that was reported to us, how far out had that actuary taken that figure into account?
I don't know.
I mean, was that based on a risk for next fiscal year, or was that based on a risk including in the future past next fiscal year?
From what Ms. Swindell said last week, I know they were looking at where we are in the current year, and they were anticipating that fund balance could decrease as much as $5 million based on outstanding claims that are there.
Because I thought it was
17.
I thought it was something about the actuary had.
Today I spoke with Rich Strauss in risk management, and he said that the actuarial study, one of the factors was that it was to be taken out 5 years. So that was an estimate through 2019 of what our expected expenditures would be. So when Carol was explaining that $5 million deduction to the liabilities was actually going to move $5 million from unrestricted to restricted to give you a total of $17 million as your potential exposure through 2019. So it was for 5 years out.
So that was a deceptive briefing, because I left here thinking that was for the next fiscal.
But that's what Rich told me today, but I haven't seen the report.
So there's money there.
Yes.
Yeah. But what don't we have somewhat of a balance? Somebody can tell us what it is today?
There should be two balances. That 8.1 is what, restricted? Is that,
That was an unrestricted
Unrestricted?
balance based on
11 is
6/30/2014.
how much is restricted?
11.2 or 0.9.
So you got 11.9 restricted. You got, so that's almost $20 million. It is $20 million.
Yes, it is.
You tell me we can't take $2 million out of that?
I'm all for it because we weren't told that was a 5-year.
It made it seem like it was the next fiscal year, which is
Exactly.
which is saying it was deceptive is I'm being nice. Okay.
Yeah, I looked at what we spent in FY14,
That's what you
what we've got budgeted this year.
So
and-
that's what she presented it.
Because we even talked about it, and she said that She said she wouldn't recommend that
If it
because
was
of,
for the next fiscal year, what she said makes
That was
sense.
for
Based
12
on
months.
what I heard.
But for 5 years,
Yeah, not 60 months, 12 months.
Exactly.
yeah. So I understand your recommendation because I heard the same thing you heard. But now we know better.
Yeah.
So I'm suggesting we take $2 million out of it.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with
So
it too.
once again, if we're using Mr. Cherry's budget proposal as a baseline, so now we can add this 2 million in, we're gonna be over, but then that allows us to do some
back out.
adjustment. And then, Mr. Mayor, don't we have the other issue with the sheriff? The
Yeah,
email
I
you
wanted to
sent?
get to, I'll get
I
to
got
that
some more
issue
too,
when
Judge.
we got around to, so how, let's get kind of a game plan of how we want to proceed. Are we using this, what Brandon has given us as information only? This is good, and setting it over here to the left and going back to the baseline where we were at the last meeting, taking this number and then adding in what we're doing now, and then finding out what in here we can take out. Can we agree on at least how we want to operate?
You can go down that list or this list, it doesn't make any difference, as long as you let us each have a say.
Right. Well, that's what I want. What I don't want us to do is go back and forth, because they're apples and oranges. Okay, one of them has cuts in here that's pretty much got everybody with some skin in the game, and this one does not. And so we're talking apples and oranges. I'd rather go back to this sheet.
If you don't
get
have
these lists.
skin in the game, I would just ask that we have been focused on this strategy for the last week, and that's the way our minds are working. I would rather, if you got some things in the old format, let's apply them here so that we can, it's certainly easier for us to keep track of them. And again, we're going to be working to try to get this built into a budget ordinance.
equalization in this? No, correct?
No, sir.
No, so that's 4.
The equalization ain't in there.
Could we agree to eliminate this whole column?
Yeah, I think we
here?
can agree to eliminate 12.5% cut.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure we were talking off the right list
I think
first, because
this
we
is
go
more
back and
helpful
forth, we're not going to get
This is more
anywhere.
helpful to
I think
Brandon.
this list is more comprehensive.
It's more helpful for the staff,
All
and
right.
they've got to do this.
So
let's
if we're
be
going to
fair
talk to
them.
this list, now, first of all, let's tell me what's on this list that's not on this list. Are you prepared to do that?
I can
Because
get
we
it
got
out
to
and-
know, right now, we're all regulated with, we're okay with this list and doing some adding and subtracting based on
cross-reference
this. So now,
I'd have to cross-reference it. I mean, the thing, let's work from what you've decided so far. Is there some consensus on a risk management amount?
Well, let's make sure, are we clear on where we are sense-wise as far as with Mr. Cherry's baseline budget, what that cents reduction is?
That was that got us to a 1.29 cent tax rate increase. That was a target.
1.15, I think it was.
And that's what we tried to target with
Without the
the
risk
three different options.
That was without risk
that was
management.
without the risk management and
That's
these other
correct.
cuts.
So you're saying that's about a 15.1 cents decrease?
It was a
reduction?
15.85 cent
15.85.
decrease.
Okay, so Mr. Cherry's is recommending a 15.85 decrease.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
From the original manager's budget.
That's correct.
With the risk management where we picked up 2 million, that's another
Yeah,
about
we hadn't
3
considered
cents.
that until this option today.
Right, so that's about another 3 cents.
If you upped it to $2 million, that's about 3 cents.
Right,
Yes, sir.
so now we're at-
That's basically saving you 3 cents.
Now we're at 18.85 cents.
No, you're going the wrong. Well, okay, yeah, in terms of a cut, yeah.
That's
You wanna look at it
2.91
that
cents,
way.
3 cents, that's right.
That's
What
right,
is it-
yeah.
what
Oh,
is it now,
She's
18?
right. I factored in $500,000 for risk management if you want to go to
So
2.
so we
So
at
you're gonna go to
17.
1.5, so it's
Yeah,
17.3.
a little more than 2 cents. of
Is that where we're at,
additional cut.
17.3?
It'd be 2.9
So
on
about 17.
$2 million.
Okay, so that automatically
He already
takes us to,
So,
I'll wait my turn.
So Dr. Whitaker, that'd be 2.2 cents.
okay, so
If we take the $500,000 he's already put in.
And add ananother $1.5 million is what
Yeah,
I
so
think
that
you're
would
saying.
Sheet of wheel on gas.
that gets us about,
Story of my life, I'm on the wrong page.
Risk
Yeah.
management wasn't in the other
Put
one.
the right hand down.
All right, yeah, all
You're
right.
using this one.
I was just starting from the baseline.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to get to,
Yeah.
because this has definition in here as to what's being cut and department by department, so you realize what you have. So when we start putting things back in, this thing tells us
Yeah.
what we're putting in. This has no definition other than numbers and a title,
But we can probably get through a lot of this and go, okay.
and switch
then-
horses.
Right.
So we at 17.
But we're using a sheet here that doesn't have everybody cut. I mean, automatically here, you don't have any cut for the sheriff, and over here you got a $500,000 cut, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're starting off a sheet here that nothing, and over here is a $500,000.
Yes.
So you got a falsehood.
Well,
Yeah, and this, you're right, this was.
We can go down
this is
all
what
these
we-
sheets I got all night. I just want to know which one we want to start with first.
Yeah, this was our stab at city operations. It does not, it did not include all the constitutionals, it did not include all the
Right.
appointees, whereas this asked them to give us an optional cut.
I suggest this sheet and use the old sheet for the add backs.
All right, all right, we're gonna go that way. Am I hearing,
I just want to make sure if we're using Mr. Cherry's baseline,
we're using this
which
sheet?
was about 15.85 cents reduction.
Yeah, net plus 2.1.
Okay, plus the risk management, you just add it back in.
Yeah.
So we at 17.3.
Yes.
Now, are we using, that's what, if we're gonna use Mr. Cherry's baseline, are we on this sheet?
We on this one.
Switch horses. I don't know how to follow this though with this. That's what I'm saying. That's my problem.
Right.
Well, when you get to a number that's in the red column and you want to know what's in there.
Brandon's gonna tell you.
We're going to do our best to
Okay.
identify
All right.
what the
That
service
makes sense.
impact is of that cut. Most of it is frozen positions.
Okay.
I would suggest we eliminate these two columns altogether and start with this one.
Start with the six
Because
and a
we're
half.
already there with that risk management, if we agree with that.
Yeah.
We
I don't know if.
Eliminate which,
We don't have to go to that.
what'd you say?
Eliminate the 8 and the 12.
If we agree, and I think we do on that risk management number,
Yeah.
now that we got a 5-year plan instead of a 1-year plan, I don't think we have to talk about the 8% and the 12% red numbers here at all.
Agree.
We can just go right down this 6.5, yes or no, add back, or make it larger, whatever it is
And
we
you
want to
also
do.
got the 4 million for equalization, another 1.5 for risk management. That's $5.5 million.
Well, equalization, let's just see what number we come up with.
Yeah, let's see where we go. This is kind of like zero-based budgeting. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens.
Okay.
Just start at the top
All
and
right.
go down.
No, I'm good with that. Now, go back to take the slide back to what's not in the 6.5. Are we okay, first of all, with what Elizabeth just recommended?
Yeah.
I think we can do without them too, but if we going with the 6.5, then I want to know what's not in the 6.5. The Sports Hall of Fame is not in the 6.5,
That's
correct?
correct.
It's not
The
effective.
sheriff's
In other words, it's
cut
not cut in the 6.
and the sheriff's cut is not in the 6.5,
That's correct.
So we got Sports Hall of Fame, what is that, 350, and the sheriff's a $500,000. So we got 800,000 not already in the 6.5. Anything else, big ticket, not in the 6.5, Brandon? What is that got? Elimination of,
Can we go back to the,
what's
no,
that?
I'm on the wrong one, sorry.
Yeah, reduction of the library.
Do we all agree on the raises and the and elimination of all the raises and the COLAs?
Yeah, I
We
think-
do agree.
I think
We all
we can
agree
agree
on
on
that.
that.
Now, I'm going back to that hiring freeze, because I do not agree that the public safety people are not mission critical. We're just coming out of finally having people hired in the fire department, where we went 3 years with no hires. We're under that DOJ consent order to continue to add personnel there. You know, we've been fussing with the chief for how long to get into an overhire situation. We can't freeze that. I mean, that is a public safety matter, and of all times, I don't think this is the time to be freezing police, fire, and dispatch.
He briefed us a few weeks ago, he had 5 vacancies, is that what he said?
What was the dollar amount you said?
Yeah, he
on
said
the
5
prison?
vacancies.
All the public safety positions would comprise about $2 million of frozen vacancies. So if you unfreeze those, you got to add $2 million back in.
Where's your risk management
But
line?
understand that all those people are not sworn people.
Matter of fact, didn't you say none of
$2
them
million
were?
was a sworn, those are sworn positions.
sworn.
2
Yes, sir.
million are sworn.
Okay.
And the fire is 5 vacancies. So do you know the police?
No, that was the piece of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we just fixed that problem with this risk management money. And they're not all coming next year. I wish they were, but they're not.
And that's the other thing. You know how long it takes you to get somebody?
It takes 18 months to get somebody qualified to put them on the street.
So it's not like you're stopping somebody from coming to work next week on July the 1st.
That's right.
It's going to be the year of 2017
Yeah.
before you see them anyway.
So do you want to freeze them or?
I think we ought to freeze it.
The police and fire?
Yeah.
Well, they have frozen themselves with the rehiring program, because they've been bringing back in the persons that have retired.
How does that number
No, good point.
figure in, Brandon? The rehiring program versus the vacancies?
They're rehired to fill vacant positions. So, I mean, the vacancies that we're talking about freezing and saving money are those that are currently vacant. I'm not sure.
So
I
they
answered your
retire,
question.
it's still the same.
Somebody retires out, they're eligible to apply for that position and be hired.
Right.
But if it's frozen, then nobody's eligible to be
That's right.
hired.
So if you're going to build a new Truxton fire station and you're not going to have any firefighters? I mean, that doesn't even make
For
sense.
FY 16, yes, if we
We're not going to hire any more
implement a hiring
firefighters on
freeze,
these fire
it's
stations.
Building a new fire station wasn't the
we
game.
certainly slow down
defer
filling
that.
those positions.
But
We were deferring the fire station.
Yeah.
But those positions are not vacant as of this budget period, because there are currently people in those positions. So when they retire, they're not being rehired into a vacant position. They're coming back into the position they just left.
Yes, sir.
So that's not.
You're anticipating a vacancy that I can't
Yeah,
predict.
but I'm saying, but if we froze the vacant positions,
That's right.
that wouldn't impact those who retire and come back in, because they would
The
be
net
filling.
gain under
Yeah,
zero.
they'd be filling their own position.
Right.
Yeah, but if a captain retires,
They'd be filling a
fire
vacant
department,
position, not their own.
they don't come back as a captain, they come back as a firefighter.
Right.
But
They'd
they
be
said they
filling
were
a
doing it
vacant
for the
position, perhaps not
experience.
their own.
So you can't have both. Are you bringing
they
them back
can't
for
come
this?
back in-
Are you
in
bringing
their
them back
rank.
for the experience, or are you bringing them back just to hire someone? Because what we were told was that it was for their experience.
It's for the
and need.
experience.
Well, then if they're captain when they retire, they still have captain knowledge.
They do, but they don't come back in that position, do they?
No, they come back and.
As a firefighter or a police officer?
Right,
Yes,
but
sir.
I'm saying they're not missing a skill set in the organization because they're coming back.
Do you know
I'm just talking money.
Well, it's a reduced salary.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. If
it
you leave
sounds-
as a captain making 100,000 and you come back as a firefighter or police officer at 38,000, we're paying that firefighter or police officer whether they just got out of training or they have 20 years on the job.
And you're paying them their 3-2-1 retirement.
Right.
That's right.
So
Which you gotta do
they're-
anyway.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying.
And you gotta
they're-
pay the VRS for the new guy.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. So they're not losing out in that situation.
And the delta in that savings, does that go to the next person that's due up to be captain? Or are we freezing that promotion? Using the same example, if a captain retires out and comes back in at the lower level and want to take advantage of his retirement plus that, now you need a captain. You just got a swing of,
What you're talking about then is sort of perpetually freezing all new positions that may be vacated, and that's a higher dollar amount than what we've got factored in here. I'm not recommending that. That's a vicious circle if you just say we're going to freeze everything that's ever vacated henceforth. So
I'm saying not freeze it, I'm saying allow that to
yes,
happen.
yes,
Allow that
I
position
agree.
to be
Yeah.
filled.
Yeah, we're not freezing some future unknown vacancy.
Right,
So if the
but-
captain retires and comes back and applies for a police officer position, that captain position is not going to be frozen, or we will not prevent somebody from being promoted to that
Correct.
captain position.
I agree with that.
Okay.
nor that person from being reinstated back in as a captain. Wouldn't that be the department decision?
But, the idea is that they would come back in as entry police
HR
officers.
talking, what?
No.
No, that's not how it works. If the captain, if the officer sworn comes back, they come back as the entry level.
Right.
Through the civil service process, have a new background, but they will not come back as a captain, a battalion, sergeant, lieutenant.
Does civil service
they-
dictate that?
No, the city's program did, when they put
Okay,
it
so
together.
that's a city decision. So they
Correct.
could come back.
Yes, but you have to change the program. The way it
Okay.
stands now and how it's written, they have to come back entry level and not have to go to the academy again.
When you say entry level, are you talking pay-wise,
Yes, sir.
not position-wise?
Position and
And pay.
Okay, so, okay.
Rank.
they would leave
Well-
as a captain.
See, I don't know why we wouldn't take advantage of that experience.
Well,
I mean, a captain coming back as...
just because they come back in entry doesn't mean they stay entry.
No, they can go back through the promotion process
Right.
again.
And they'd be the most
Which they
qualified.
could, yeah, which they could,
That
Chief is
doesn't
only
make
agreeing
sense.
with me.
which they would probably,
Chief, they can, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
They can go through the promotional process.
which they would.
And they would win. They're the most qualified.
I don't know why they would do that. You've been performing the job.
So in 10 years, they could retire as a captain again.
In 1 year,
VRS,
in 3
not
years,
321.
BRS is,
Yeah, but to Dr. Whitaker's point is,
I get it.
okay, you get his.
Yeah, I get it.
All right.
So the freezing of the 1.6, the 1.64 million here on the freezing vacancies that's back on the sheet we don't want to talk about, that one does not include that new vacancy that will come available, right?
Yes, back on that sheet, the 1.6 was the delta between the 2.4 vacancy savings that we had built in and what the vacancy list was at the time we did that report. So
Right.
that's what that 1.6 is. So it's-
Okay, but it wouldn't prohibit us from filling a captain retiring and promoting back to that seat. It would or would not, Judy?
No,
No.
this just freezes the vacant positions that are there now.
Now?
Yes.
That's
Okay,
correct.
all right, yeah. So I don't see what's wrong with freezing them now.
I don't either.
Is there a
I
consensus?
disagree. Let's go on
I
there.
mean, okay.
Yeah, we
I mean,
need-
I just want to make sure we didn't all talk
Yeah.
it through because, I mean, I was kind of middle of the road. I wanted to do a percentage of it. I didn't want to freeze them all, but I didn't want to make them completely off the table. But sounds like we got, most folks want to freeze them.
Let's do a
Okay. You want
consensus.
to see? Will you
Yeah.
let me be the mayor?
5 minutes.
Freezing? Doctor?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yep, all right, we're good.
No.
All right. And you?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so 6-1. Okay, all right, so we're gonna keep them up there. So now we're back to this list on the 6.5, and you had just brought up, the issue with, we were talking about mission critical, and you were trying to get his definition of mission critical, and you wanted to get the police and fire in there and mission critical. So we just angst that. All right, so now where are we at back on this list? Are we, you still want the floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
I would, I have 3 things I care about, making sure are not cut, now that I've lost my police and fire. The museum funding, whatever you want to call it, that has to do with Christmas, Winter Wonderland, and the Holiday Music Festival. That is a nationally renowned event that brings a lot of people to this community. It's one of the happy things we have, along with the PIT, and I don't think we need to eliminate those, nor do I think we need to eliminate the funding to the Sports Hall of Fame, nor do I want to eliminate the 3 positions for the assessor, procurement, and the general district court. I just saw Jody Davis a little while ago at the
Memorial service.
memorial service for the police and sheriffs, and she was talking still about the number of cases that will come because of Elizabeth River Crossing to the court for those fines and fees and what they anticipate in revenue coming in, which from what Brandon told us before, and what she told me today, those fees will more than pay for that person. The assessor, the commercial assessor for Janie, is a revenue generator, and from what Councilman Whitaker told us last meeting, the procurement person is almost a necessity for the new program coming in. And it doesn't sound like we can share with the school system, so I think those three positions have got to be here.
don't know why
I
we
think they're
can't.
money makers for one thing.
I think we can share that with the school system myself, but I agree with, I'm with you on those. Those are my hot button issues.
Well, I agree with most of that because there's not a whole lot of money we're
No,
talking
it's
with the
not.
museum piece. And
No, none of-
I'm back
none
on
of
the
those
list
are.
y'all don't want me to be on, but that list here doesn't have a whole lot of dollars
It's
in
not.
that. And so,
But what it means to Roger Brown's and Gosport Tavern and Cafe Europa and
no, I understand.
all of them and
It generates revenue.
it generates revenue. It's,
So,
you know,
But, yes, sir.
to sort of.
Hold on, let me finish. Are you done?
I'm done. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got everything you like and don't? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
trying to simplify it for understanding purposes. We're at 17 point, our goal was to reduce the 17 cents tax.
Yeah.
We're at 17.3 cents right now, based on Mr. Cherry's proposal plus the 1.5 risk management. And we still have hanging out there your proposal of the 3 million and Sports Hall of Fame. So when we add that in, we're up to.
I think in his proposal, the Sports Hall of Fame is done.
So, okay, so
So that's
we're
all-
at 3 million. And so that's what, about another 4.5 cents? So we're about at 21 cents. So would it be easier to try to see what we want to put back in?
I think
Once we go around
I think
and,
that's what we're doing.
that's what I'm trying to do now, go around and get everybody's wish list. And now I want to go back to that baseline and say, put this back in, just like we said with the museums and the lights and all of that. I think that, I mean, from a dollar perspective, that's a no-brainer. But I wanted to at least get everybody to flush out what they wanted to see and did not want to see. Who's next? You just went. You want?
I was left for a second. I apologize for that. The libraries, the IT stuff, and what was the other one? The stuff bringing the tourists in for the tax revenue dollars. I don't know what you
That's
touched
basically what I said.
Okay.
The PIT, the Grand Illumination.
on. But the IT piece, I think, is very. You don't want to get. I mean, technology is changing every day, and I think that'll be huge for our employees.
But when you say IT piece, what are you talking about?
Well, either way, you got one thing.
I mean, we got this position in here for the IT director, but what are we talking in terms of IT?
Well, if you go back to his slide, he wanted to, what was that dollar amount, Brandon?
It was deferring IT software upgrades and hardware replacements.
Where is that? Which page you on this slide?
4.
I
And
think
under the 6.5 option, there was a reduction of $201,400.
All right, how much is that? How much is that last bullet? Defers IT software upgrades and significant hardware replacement. How much we're talking here? If
On
we
the
don't
6.5.
defer.
We're talking about the
I agree, we need
6.5.
that.
Yeah, so the 201.
201.
201.
1,000.
And one other item, the paving of the roads.
Yes, sir.
I don't see us. I mean, that's.
We need
You look
that
at
man.
Frederick and Turnpike by itself.
I think that money's already evaporated, apparently. because-
You're right, Mayor, because we're going back and forth, because that stuff wasn't included in my baseline.
Right.
All that stuff was
yeah, I know.
was sacred.
Right.
So we weren't doing any of that.
None of that was included here.
Right.
So
But,
you
I
with
mean-
IT, you want to put the IT back in?
And the paving.
And the paving back in?
Yeah, she already did the tours and the.
And the things that generate revenue from the tourist thing, okay. All right, I'm good. Dr. Woodard?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the IT position, the procurement position. Also, two others, I noticed here the registrar. We have some elections coming up, major elections, and just like we saw with one of the elections, it was some uncertainty that election was to be the Commonwealth Attorney. I think given the nature of the whole voting issue around the country and the fact that our city hasn't been cited for any type of
And we're one of the
voting.
few.
Yeah, impropriety. I think we need to keep that as funded as is.
Put
Also,
the 20,000 back.
yeah.
It's not a lot of money. I agree with you, Dr. Wood.
Yeah, that needs to go back in.
Now, where is that at?
That's the
What page?
20, that's line 34.
Line 47, 48, 49 on,
And plus,
What is it?
the training, although that election is going to be in the next fiscal year, the training usually takes place the previous
34.
fiscal year. That's the 20,000. Also,
For the registrar, the 20,000.
Yes, sir.
right.
I'm all right with that.
Also, on line 51, we spoke about, on line 52, yeah, CIP. I mentioned the last time as far as, instead of that being a cash funded, that we could bond fund, because the West Haven project, that was a roof replacement, and according to the definition of what the city used to put into bond, it was long-term projects that would outlast the amortization. And
It would qualify as a candidate
Yeah.
to be bond funded instead of cash funded.
Right. And so that could be revenue put back in, so that the projects could go forward.
We need to cash fund some capital projects, and I think we're going to, without any certainty, I think we're going to be in a position with the end-of-year savings in the school budget to be able to fund the West Haven roof replacement out of FY15 savings.
You may be, but I'm saying, instead of us using the cash for that we could put elsewhere, couldn't we put that under a bond and stretch it out as, a program that would amortize itself out?
We could add it to our bond-funded list. I don't know where we are with the bond-funded list and if we're approaching our debt capacity, but it's,
That's the thing we'll be working on with our financial advisors, because we're, the debt capacity, the amount of debt that we're paying, we've been trying to limit those projects and cash fund as much as we can afford.
Because of the reoccurring debt.
Okay, so,
I just was asking.
no, you're good. So, line 52, back to Dr. Whitaker, CIP, the 786,000 that's being deferred, where's that money going now? If we get there, I guess we shouldn't count money that we don't have.
you
but
just
if
don't
think-
cash fund that item from the general fund.
Okay, so is this now a goes on the plus side?
Yes, sir. It adds to your tax rate.
That's a penny and some change.
That's a penny from change. Okay, all right. What else, Dr. Wood?
Those were the major ones right now.
Dr. Evans?
I want to look at Willard Hall. What are we doing with that?
I'm hoping we can keep it open.
In the 6.5 and 8, we didn't do anything with
We're
it.
not cutting it.
I heard that.
Did some
Just a little
expenditure
minor.
tweaking.
On this list, under the 6.5, which is what we're focusing on, it's not being cut, right?
This is
So it's okay.
$9,542, yeah.
Is it,
Yep.
I had one other thing I want to bring up about, I think I had talked with Brandon about it before. It's not on the list, but attrition, can that play a part in the budget, getting down where we need to be in some areas?
Well, you and I discussed that, and that was really the thing that I said, I think we need to talk about next year, looking at incentivizing early retirement. And so that's why I put that in the last slide as a thing to talk about for next year. But on the timetable that we're working
Right,
with
I
right
know.
now, I wasn't ready to be able to give you a dollar value that I could anticipate in next year's budget for that.
Hold on, Mr. Meeksburg.
the commissioner revenue, what was his reason not? I know he replied.
I'll be happy to share with you his
Okay.
letter, but
All right, no problem.
Dr. Wood.
Just for consideration, if we can get this significantly below that 17-cent mark, can we look at some possible increase in pay for our employees?
Well, if we tweak this thing the right way, I would like to see us do that before we throw some of these other things. At least a 2%.
Right.
Yeah.
If we can, and I don't
Well, that's
know.
what was in there.
Yeah,
That's what was in the manager's recommended budget, was a 2%. We've taken
But-
that out.
Yeah, but that was 2% of a 17 cents tax increase.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We're saying.
Well, I'm
this
talking about a
thing down.
2% pay increase. is what I'm
Right.
talking
But
about.
it was part
Part
of
of
the
the
tax increase.
17 cents.
And how much is that anyway? What was that?
1.65 million, it's line 53.
Yeah, but we giving everybody the 6. We're talking to general wage folks,
Yes, sir.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Right, that is,
Not the police and fire.
Oh, well, now, if you divide that, then
Okay, yeah.
that's a different, why, you're going to
Divide-
treat them differently.
Yeah, sure. They're already the highest paid. We keep adding them in every time we try to correct or right size our general wage folks. We got folks dumping trash and in social services. We're trying to help them catch up. And we just arbitrarily keep throwing in the police and fire who are doing okay right now. So yes, it's.
But they've received increases in the
Absolutely, they done
Yeah.
received it.
Yeah.
I don't
talking-
have handy the general wage increase breakout of that
Okay.
1.65 million.
So I want to know what it is for the general wage, because if it's not the 1.6, if less than that and we can give them 3, then I'd rather do that. But absolutely take out the police and fire.
And Mayor, don't forget, still got the $1 million that he was going to transfer from waste management.
Yeah, the general fund.
But you've got that baked in your list here.
Yes, sir, it's in the
You've already baked in the $1 million that Danny and I asked about.
I'm going to put the list that Dr. Whitaker's keeping, the track, that 1 million. You got that 1 million on your list?
No.
No, for the waste, right.
Yeah.
I'm a scribe.
You started this, so I'm just.
Have it somewhere.
Can we look at, Judy, that increase for the general wage folks absent the police and fire?
yes, sir.
And what that would be, and what would a 3% increase be? And probably, if we can get somebody to be working on that number, I think we're gonna be here all night trying to nail this thing down. I'd like to know what that number is, so we can put that in.
We factored 2% in this budget. Do you want to look at 3 for general wage only?
Just general wage. You
Is
got
that the
2%,
consensus?
you got
I mean,
everybody in there.
I'm not second guessing you, but before we do this exercise.
I understand. You've got police and fire in there, and that.
It
Take
also,
that out and tell me how much more that is that we can give to the general wage employees.
You have retirees too.
it also had retirees, a
A
1%.
1% COLA for retirees.
1%, right. So how much in the 2% there is would the police and fire cost us?
And 3.
And then they want to put that money back in, so it may be 3 for the general wage folks.
So, and give us the difference with retirees also. With, both of them, the mayor's number, then his number with retirees.
Have y'all forgotten you passed a unanimous resolution for a public safety pay plan? Does that not mean anything?
Not right now. Okay, where else would we?
Like that.
Dr.
I'm good.
Okay, all right.
No, can anybody?
You good with your
I got my
baseline
my
piece
baseline,
you
I'm
got?
good.
All right, Mr. Moody?
I'm not good with ignoring a resolution that we passed, reference the fire and police pay plan.
Well, as the former manager, not the two previous, the one who put that in said it was when funds are available,
Right.
which is the rationale he used.
Well,
Wait, let me finish, Bill.
Let him finish.
Which was the rationale he used when I got here, and you both were here when we froze it, when we were in the same similar situation. He froze that pay plan. He did furloughs. He did eliminate, did all those kind of things. So it was when the money funds are available. And if you're in a situation where they're not available, you can't do it. So that's why we sit around this table to make the big decisions.
And I believe he also said that it was not guaranteed, and he had a latitude in that piece that if they got out of the range that would cause a mass exodus like we had years ago, then at his discretion, he had some dollars in there to be able to do something. It was never guaranteed. We came in and made it guaranteed, and the last couple of raises, we didn't made it guaranteed. It was never guaranteed, so they're in real good shape. So yes, we can ignore that and focus on these
So
general
now the
wage folks.
teachers would get a raise, everybody in the city would get a raise but them.
Elizabeth, you can say it however you want. Yes,
Okay.
they ain't getting it.
Okay.
Go back and tell them.
Mayor,
All right.
we got to do something about the clerk's budget too.
And, okay.
Because I think it's about decimated in your proposal. isn't it?
Yes, sir.
The freeze would freeze your one
The
position that you have?
The 6.5% would totally take out my entire budget.
Okay.
So we got to do something about that. Got to put that back. Something
Yeah,
back.
we
Where are you at?
But
What
I
line
did
item?
include your deputy clerk as a mission critical.
Well, thanks, but
So I'm saying there's
Where's
not
your
a
line item,
vacancy
Deborah?
savings in there.
number 2.
Number 2. Yeah, we need to keep that.
So
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that we put that back in.
Yes, I am. I agree.
No, that's the deputy clerk position.
That's the.
This
That's
isn't,
not touched.
no, this is all the items including printing, training, all the items that come on it. If you look in your budget under city clerk, everything listed would be cut. We couldn't cut advertising because we're legally bound to advertise your public hearings for your meetings. Everything else out of my budget was cut.
And you-
Yeah, we need to put that.
Mr. Mayor, would you indulge me just sort of a quick tabulation of where we are so we make sure we're all.
I was getting ready to do that. I'm
Okay.
first, who's keeping score?
All right. Well, because that's
And
important.
back, and which sheet are we on?
Okay.
Whitaker's got
I'm looking
some
at the
interesting
6.5% column.
Can you read them?
You've added back
read
in
it.
line 2 the amount of the city clerk's reduction, the 18,800. If you go down to line 11, IT, we're adding back in the equipment portion of that $201,400.
It's
Now,
all equipment.
That's all
software.
equipment, so we're adding that
There's no
201
position.
back in.
Well, the technology, telecommunications is
19.
underneath it. That's all part of the same
Okay.
thing.
Streets and highways, we're adding in, we took 50, out of line 17 in that 6.5% column, we took 50,000 out of the paving budget, so we'll add that back in.
Are you only adding 50,000 to that line?
That's all we took out in
for the
that
paving.
226,000. The rest of that was vacancies.
Okay, okay.
Going on down to museums, there's 107,000 in order to fund.
What number is that?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
28.
Line 27.
27.
We're going to add back in an amount for Winter Wonderland and
Grand illumination.
All of
and
the
grand
illumination, all
illumination
of it.
and other Christmas
PIT.
items.
So the 107,
The best I can do is say, let's just put the 107 back in there.
right.
Okay.
Does that include the PIT? Because I don't
No.
want to leave
Yes.
that out.
Yeah.
Is the PIT in the, yeah. Lamor's,
PITs and Laboris
We'll need to, if we add PIT, we'll need to add that back into marketing and communications, which is line 13.
13.
And I believe that's been at a $25,000 level.
Well, the PIT that we took out was only the $10,000 match to the foundation for their advertising. They still get $24,000 from Parks and Recreation. So that PIT only took out the advertising match for the foundation.
Okay.
It did not take out the PIT.
so they're still listed under Parks and Rec.
No.
And we didn't cut
But they
that.
get money from Parks and Recreation to the tune of
We
like
need to add
$25,000.
$10,000 to back to marketing.
So we're adding
Is that what you're
10,000
saying?
back to
the
marketing and
PIT.
communication.
Yeah, let's do that.
The grand illumination was $15,000 with the Downtown Norfolk Council, if we're going to be a partner in that.
That's in your budget, right?
Correct.
Not, okay, not in the museum.
So make that
Okay, so we need to
25,000.
include 25,000.
25 going back into line 13.
Line 13, 25,000.
All right, I was
And then-
down to, hang on a
think
second.
27.
27.
Laboris is still trying.
Line
I'm sorry.
34,
Hold on.
registrar.
Lavor's, what were you trying to say?
I was just saying, we added another $50,000 to museums marketing, which included advertising for increased marketing for the museums and also for the Portsmouth Colored Community Library.
So are we good or not
Museums or
good?
marketing?
I took that out. Remember, that was a reduced marketing for
Yeah, but
museums.
we can't take them over and then cut them off.
Well, that's marketing. That's not operations. That's marketing.
That's just
Yeah, I know, but.
So that's,
How much
you
was
gotta
in
tell
there
the
for
world they're there.
the,
50,000.
so that's
how much?
50,000 for marketing the museum.
75 altogether.
So we're talking about
75.
adding back 75.
Yeah.
Yeah, with all
Okay.
those other things, if you want, that's
Yeah.
75,000 into
Okay,
marketing.
we good
Okay,
with that.
75, yeah.
Okay.
Of 124, we're adding back
Right.
75.
I'd gotten down to line 34, registrar. You're talking about not cutting that 20,000, so keeping that
Right.
in there. Line 51, risk management, we're making that 2 million.
21.
Line 53, we got to compute and figure out how much to add back for a general wage increase.
Brandon, what'd you say about risk management? Where were you at?
Line 51, we're going to make that 2 million instead of
gotcha.
500,000.
In 52, you're going to put that into bond?
It says 51, but it's really 52. So,
Okay.
yeah.
They said they were going to see what they had
See
on
if
the
the
debt.
bond- if they can- oh, yeah.
That's why he lost me, because 51 didn't say
They're gonna
that.
what?
See if it can defend the debt.
There's two 51s, so it's just,
Okay.
So you're looking at
If we use it from the school money.
That's what Judy said.
All right, so we got to figure out how much of the 1,650,000 for pay is for general wage increase and add that back in.
2 lines for 51.
What line is that? General wage?
Mine's 53. I don't know what. I mean, it's a 1,650,000. It's
Okay, 53, okay.
standing out there pretty
What
obvious.
is it, 53?
You gonna find out
And-
what portion of that?
Yeah,
is
we
the
got to figure out
police
what. Yeah, we got to figure out what portion is general wage to add back in.
Okay.
No, I'm saying leave the 1.6, just give it all to the general wage employees.
165 is a cut.
Oh, okay.
That's taking out everybody's raises.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Now, you have on the right trail first.
Monitor, don't, I wouldn't
And
be.
the last thing,
You're gonna figure out what the 3% pay raise is for general wage.
is there a consensus for 3% for general wage?
I'm starting to fight myself.
Because there's 2 is what we factored before. You want to go to 3?
You can say 3.
Yeah, 3.
Well, can you tell us the difference between 2 and 3?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, we'll try to do that.
And-
I think on most of these, the police and fire has
And
been
the
a
1 cent for
significant
retirees.
piece of it. I mean, it's been $1 million, so
You want to keep that, the
Is it
1%
half?
for
Is it half?
retirees?
that would have to go
Okay.
up.
you had to do half, whatever you're getting for the retirees.
And the last thing we had to add back in was Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, and I don't have that.
What line item is that?
I don't, it's not,
It's not a line item on there.
it's not a line item in here,
Well, I
because
thought you said it was already funded under the 6.5% piece.
it was.
Funded,
because
it's
we-
not taken out.
We didn't
It's
take it
not
out.
taken out.
not
Right, so
taken
if you
out.
don't, we don't need to add anything back in there.
So we don't need to add it. The Hall of Fame's already in there under the 6.5.
Yes, sir.
Can I?
We gotta see. Okay.
So I think that's the list you got so far.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
We're talking about cutting, and I don't want to crucify the retirees, but our debt service is up to 21, and then it goes to 23 million because we fully funded their retirement. So we don't give them the 1% this year. I think that I mean, what dollar amount? What significant dollar amount is it? Do we know?
Well, there again, that's been a commitment that goes back a number of years. We give them 50% of whatever the general wage increase is.
Is that?
I mean, you bring up a valid point. We just did some things and took on a lot of debt to make that whole piece whole. So, and we went and borrowed another $25 million for the supplement folks. So
Offset.
all of those folks ought to be happy right now. So,
Bill, will you elaborate on what we told them? This is the first time I ever heard it.
That's what it's been for, Lord,
Practice,
for
right.
8 years. It's
whatever
been
we give half
probably
to the
10 years.
retirees.
Is that a huge dollar amount, Brandon?
1% for the retirees.
I don't know.
He's gonna tell
See
us.
what that is, so we
It's
can
not
get that to
no,
the
it's not a
general
huge dollar amount, but I don't know what it is.
Let them bring the number back.
Yeah, tell us the number. Yeah.
2 and 3 and 1 and 1.5.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, go back up here. I'm still confused here on the constitutional officers. Now, we're going to accept the city treasurer taking an $87,000 hit because he tried to comply and do what you asked, and we got a commissioner of revenue that has done nothing, and we're just going to bypass that.
What's our local support?
What's the, and you got here in the commissioner of revenue, if you got 76,000,
All right, speak up.
line 38, speak up, Judy.
The city treasurer, there's 2 vacant positions in there. That's why those dollars are there.
So the 2 vacant positions, he's okay with freezing them?
I wouldn't say that.
I'm saying he's going, I mean, if,
That was real nice.
and these 2 departments are roughly about the same. I'm trying to share.
He did give us $10,000 of cuts. He did attempt, but there's the majority of that money is the 2 positions.
Yeah, I think we need to give him his money back or share that with the commissioner of revenue
What, split it?
somehow. I mean, you just can't let the treasurer take the hit and the commissioner of revenue say no. right?
It's-
I mean, if you're trying to be fair.
Do we have to find out what his state and local component is?
We can only touch the local component.
That's right.
And once again, they produce revenue. I would say leave them alone, constitutional officers alone.
Well, if you want to leave them on, you need to leave them both alone. I'm just saying we need to be fair. I don't want the treasurer taking a hit in the
I
commission.
feel that same way. I agree with Bill.
Well, and they collect their money.
Yeah, constitutional officers, just leave them alone.
So that's,
Just my rough math, and it's very rough, at where we are on the 6.5% line is we're down to about, well, we're adding a penny and a half, and we're going to add more depending on how much the cost of the general wage increase is. So we're still on the good side of what we started with, which is 4.28 cents.
That's great.
So where are we again?
Yeah, make sure.
Did you take the treasurer's?
I didn't. I was calculating that while you were doing the treasurer, so I don't know what you just.
What's the
treasurer's?
It's probably not.
They're taking that out of the.
We're saying,
Okay.
give the treasurer his money back, the 87, if we're not gonna do that, and as well as the clerk of court. 20,000 for her.
Okay. The two of those together are maybe 0.2 cents.
Yeah, you're talking 97,000 for
Yeah.
those two.
All right. So let me
What
mark
does
that
that
on
put
the
us?
sheet.
Why is he coming?
Still keeping track?
There's 87.
I mean, 24.6 cents.
It was
What?
in the general district court, 40,000. That's a large amount.
24.6 cents.
No, don't.
Nah, man.
Did we agree on these, to add these positions back? We did, didn't we? The assessor and the,
Yeah.
Yeah, we agreed to put her
to add
position
that
back,
back.
right?
That doesn't include.
Yeah, we
That
did
was
that.
part of my original proposal.
You're at 7 cents. We should give the citizens
South
a refund.
Where you at? Oh, Judas.
The unknown is how much of the general wage increase at 3% is. We're just going to take some. It's going to take some time to calculate that. I don't know if I can give you that tonight with any confidence.
It's okay.
We don't want confidence, we were swagging. I
Two or
mean,
three.
Are we keeping all three of the new positions? Is that the?
I didn't add that. Are we keeping all three of the new positions?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's adding
What three new
165,000.
positions are we talking about?
That's the city assessor, the procurement
General district court.
specialist, and the general district
Why are we buying
court.
secretaries?
New position, the clerk.
Who's the secretary?
The general district was a secretary, I thought it was.
It's a clerk to handle the Elizabeth River Crossing
Toll
toll
fines.
fines
what
that are
Jody
gonna pay
was
for
talking about.
themselves, yeah.
That's
That's more than paid for.
secretary.
that's the secretary.
So roughly at 2 cents plus whatever we add for general wage increase.
It's 40,000.
Now, city attorney, where are we at with your piece here now? We don't want you to be.
Good question, Mayor.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mayor.
I mean, no, we got some things that we talked about that we're trying to do to shore up your office with at least one person there to, and as you go and do your evaluation. What line are you?
I am line
Line
5.
Oh,
And to my knowledge, there was only one assistant city attorney, put in by my predecessor. And that couldn't, to my knowledge, that came out because that couldn't be honored. So I'm not really sure where we're at. And as interim, I'm not able to hire, but I do know once I finish my evaluation of the office that council asked me to do, that there are going to be
Paralegal that's
at
coming
least
out. That's
2
the only
assistant city attorney positions, possibly 1 assistant city attorney position, 1 deputy city attorney position, and a litigation paralegal position that we definitely sorely need.
Okay.
So how much do we?
So what is, now what is the 43 in here on your line now, the
That's
43,000?
the paralegal position. The other two positions were not in here of the city attorney and the assistant city attorney one.
I did submit the assistant city attorney one.
Right, so I considered that a mission critical. I took it off the frozen
Thank you.
vacancy, but the
But paralegal is
paralegal,
still on there.
I didn't keep as a mission critical, and so it's on the vacancy list, and that's the 43.
We need another one,
We
additional one?
definitely need a paralegal back, and we need desperately a deputy city, a litigation attorney, a deputy city attorney or senior deputy city attorney, someone that can do federal court cases and state court cases, so we can reduce our outside counsel fees. If
Yep.
we want to keep
So-
more in-house.
Is that 150 for those two positions?
I would say
If it
probably,
is, it's a bargain compared to what we're
Oh,
paying.
yeah, oh, no, I agree with you.
I would say
Outsourcing,
for the deputy city attorney position or senior deputy city attorney position, that would be closer to 110. And for a paralegal with the type of experience that I think the office needs, it would be in the range of between 45 and 50, I would imagine.
So you're
So
160.
175.
Yeah.
Just talking about salary, now you gotta add benefit, you gotta add a
200.
benefit factor.
Yeah.
But we have to have another litigator down there.
Plus the
Yes,
43?
desperately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
change it.
to
200
line
plus the
5,
77?
we're adding how much? You kept the one position as mission critical. We want to throw in the paralegal and,
A senior deputy or a deputy city attorney.
Oh,
so we're talking adding what?
200.
200?
Yeah.
With benefits, yes, I would say.
200.
Yeah, 200.
Plus the 43 that's already up here.
Well, you're gonna zero out that
Gonna zero it,
43.
yeah.
Well, you might
And
want
you're
to
going to add a new position for a deputy city attorney that we had not budgeted for.
Okay, that we had not budgeted.
So it's a net impact of about $200,000.
I have another question about city attorney's office. We have
On the
some
road,
people.
don't mess it up.
You get yeses
We may
right
have
there.
some people retiring or someone retiring. Would that position be frozen?
We're
Or
only-
would that position be able to be
No,
filled?
no.
Only what's frozen at this
Okay,
time.
thank you.
Good question.
Can't have a rolling freezing.
I'm
Yeah.
done.
So what did we just do there? We just added what back? A delta of what, 200,000?
Yes, sir.
And that's including the 43?
You're taking that 43 out, and so you're going to fill that position, and you've created a new position now, a fourth new position,
Okay.
which would be a deputy city attorney position.
So now what have we done? What are we looking like, Judy? We didn't gave up.
Let's say
We didn't gave up on Dr. Whitaker.
let's say
You're now the scribe.
you're at
I
about
like his number.
you're probably at about 2.5 cents plus whatever we add for general wage increase.
2.5 cents adding, all right.
A 2.5 cent tax rate increase plus some additional amount.
2.5 cents we're going out and ask for.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
I don't think so.
Did you finish your list? You on yours? All right, because I want to get to the sheriff. With this 6.5% here does not include on this list the $500,000 cut that you had because of his non-compliance with the regional jail. That's not in there, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. So we got no cut right now on this list here for the sheriff's department. I wanted to bring our attention, I thought I sent, or had the clerk send out to everybody, the consultant's report that we had back when we were getting ready to open up the new judicial center, and the request that was made of the sheriff's department to add 28 new positions for the city funded, and we had Sheriff Paul Lantain to come through and look at this list and give us some recommendations. And we essentially, and if everybody got that sheet there, we essentially ignored all of his recommendations, and we gave the sheriff an additional 20-something odd positions. And how much was that money we gave back then? Was it about 1.2 or 1.4 million dollars? Okay. And looking at all of these staff positions and all of these recommendations to the consultant, who made some very valid concerns here with all of the deputies that were added on, we basically gave the sheriff a net gain of 28 positions and he included in his proposal to us positions that the state's already paying him for. Transportation, all of these positions, if you go to this sheet here, he's got 161 positions that is authorized by the state comp board. So what he basically did was remove those and came and added 28 more positions and put it all on the new courthouse. And say, because we got a new courthouse, because there's more square footage, I need 3 deputies for the central control part. I need 6 deputies for transportation. I need 8 deputies to be in the Sally Port and the holding areas and to be runners. I need 5 deputies to work the scanners up front. And then he threw in another 4 extra deputies for, in case somebody's out sick, 2 more in case somebody's on vacation, and 1 in case somebody's out getting trained. And if you look at the consultant's concerns here, he actually disputed that you didn't need most of these things. And you certainly didn't need all of these deputies here for transporting. You didn't need the deputies for the Sally Port area, because if you utilize the video teleconferencing, which we spent about $300,000 in the new courthouse to have that installed, and they're not using it. If you use that, most of these inmates that are going over to the court are for things like arraignment and things like that that they can handle over the video teleconference. The only reason they need to be over in the court is for trials. And I think that's what was shared and was not disputed here. And so there's about 8 or 10 positions there that were in there fluff. Okay? And then there's another 4 in there in case people don't come to work and people are on sick and all of that. And then up in the courtrooms, we gave him, under the general district court, we gave him 2 deputies when the state only said he needs 1. And we did that also for juvenile and domestic. So he's got twice as many deputies there. So in the general district court, there's 6 people, and for the juvenile and domestic, there's 6. Okay? The circuit court, which requires 2 deputies, were 5. There were 10. We now only have 4. So automatically we can take 2 off of it. We won't replace that 1. If you add all these numbers up, my point is we've given him about 26 people too many. And with all of the people that he have for his state comp, which we never asked him, well, if I'm going to give you a transportation guy, then where's the guy that was over in the other jail? Where's the transportation guy there? Where's he at? Where's the Sally Port person that was over in the old jail? Where's the folks that were working in these holding areas and all these other things? And where are the deputies to make up for all of these vacation, sick times and all that? None of that stuff was brought up. We pretty much ignored what the consultant here asked us. And I'm sure we did it and probably made a huge mistake. And then the consultant also said the scanners working the front desk on both the front and the rear exit of the courthouse could be done by using private security. And it could be done for an enormous reduction, and we have not utilized that. And if you go over in the court on any day, and I've spent the last week and a half walking in there at various times, there's 5 or 6 people standing up front. There's 2 or 3 people standing in the back. There's deputies all over the courthouse. And there's no secret to anybody in there that there's too many people walking around that courthouse in deputy uniforms. Okay? We can contract, and the sheriff should have done this if he's trying to do anything to help the city with saving money. We could have contracted these scanner positions here, these 5, which we don't need 5, but if he did those 5, you could have contracted them out. We're paying on an average of about $48,000 for each one of these deputies, all in, benefits and everything. And we can get a contract person in there for half that. So we essentially can get, or you can just go, and the sheriff here, this consultant, even recommended using retired police and retired officers to be able to work the wands and to be able to give you a cost savings. You don't have to fully burden those people and all of that. We didn't take any of that in consideration. So we essentially gave the sheriff $1.4 million more on top of his already authorized 161 positions.
To get the one.
And now we're sitting here with all of these cuts that we're asking everybody to do, and there are no cuts in here for his department. And he's defying our wishes and asking him to go to the regional jail and to put those additional folks over there. So he's costing us, according to Brandon's sheet here on this, about $500,000. And this if I look at this proposal here, for the annual cost of personnel was about 1.2. So I think we're overspending in his budget about $1.7 million. Okay? And I think that needs to be taken out.
1.7.
I think it needs to be taken out, and I think, and this is not including the supplement that we give, okay? We're giving a supplement to all of his personnel like we do everybody. And the intent there is to, just like we're doing with our general wage folks, we want those folks in a competitive range. When they finish their training in the academy, there's supposed to be a $2,500 or some supplement in there for them. If you look at the sheet that we all got and see where all the supplement money is going and who's getting it, and go look down here at all of these low-level folks that really need it and are not getting it. I mean, this list and this payroll is extremely disturbing. And if you go down here, and I don't want to get into personnel, there are people's names up here, family members' names up here that have been here less than 2 or 3 years, and they're one of the highest paid people in the department. And we've got folks in here dating back to 1980 and 79 that are less below them. I just got a major problem with how this funding is being dispersed, how it's being used, the grant money that they're getting and paying whoever and however it's being distributed. And on top of all of that, he's not complying with the regional jail, and we gave him another 20-something positions. I think we need to take it all, and I think if he does not comply with the regional jail, then we need to take all of the supplement from his folks. So we'll put that on him. If he wants to comply and work with us, we'll leave the supplement for his employees. Even though the disbursements here, I think it's got some real questions that need to be answered, but I think we leave those supplements alone for now. But if he doesn't comply with getting those prisoners over there, we need to go in there and take all of that out, because that's all local money that we're giving to him to be able to help with his payroll. I just don't think it's fair to hurt his deputies because he wants to be non-compliant and he wants to continue to do what he wants to do. But if he want to jeopardize his people's salary, and I think the supplement here, Brandon, is what, about $500,000? So there's another $500,000 here in allowances, $546,000 or somewhere like that.
Allowances is the supplement, yes, sir.
Is that the supplement? So
Sir.
There's another $500,000 in there that should be dispersed to all of his workforce to be able to keep them at a competitive range. And I'm all in favor of that. I just think it's unfortunate that he doesn't want to comply and do what we want. He wants to come up and take our math and do his own math and say how he's saving us and how he's getting $8 a day and we still got to feed these folks. All of that. If we allow him to be able to do that and not allow a regular department director to come up and say, "Counsel, I know what you said, but I did some figures and marketing. I don't want to do what y'all said because based on what I figured, I can do it this way." And if everybody took that approach, then there was no need to have a council or no reason for us to have policy and decisions. So I'm saying this is an area where we need to draw the line. I think it's going to be very unfair to these departments to put these cuts in place, and this guy got people stuffed in every room in that courthouse and all over the city doing things that I don't think any of us have any idea. Okay? All right. Dr. Whitaker,
Let me make sure, because I wasn't on council at the time. Are you saying that council funded the study that you're referencing? that was a study done?
Actually, it was a proposal, this was a proposal made by the sheriff to us. I need 28 positions, and here's where I need all these people because of the court. We took this and we gave it to a consultant who was Virginia Beach retired Sheriff Lane Tain, and say, would you look at this and tell us your thoughts? And so he came back, and on each one of these, he made recommendations as to things we should be considering. And he used video teleconference here, obviously, between the jail and the courthouse and between other jails would greatly reduce inmate movement. So there's no need to have 8 people transporting, 8 more sitting in a sally port. And by the way, by noontime, everything in court's almost to a crawl. And by 2 o'clock, there's absolutely very little activity going on. And we're paying these people till 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
So council went out, council had the consultant, and these were the recommendations of the consultant. Right, yeah, well, I'm in agreement that we can't just ignore something of this magnitude. And now the 1.7 million, you're saying that doesn't include the supplement that? No,
if you, well, it could, because the cost factor that Brandon has in this sheet here was about $500,000 of what it's costing us over at the regional jail versus what we're costing to pay for them to stay over here. So I think it was about $600,000 over there, $400,000 over here, and somehow on your sheet.
Now the supplement I'm talking about is the salary.
The salary, no. I'm saying the only thing we can touch of his money is local money.
Right.
So if we use the 400, what page are you on here?
411, I think it was.
400, sure, 413. So he's got here, based on the Hampton Roads Regional Jail daily average population and FY15, 207, reduced the equivalent local cost to house 43 inmates at the city jail for FY16. This amount, $413,000, is net of offsetting per diem revenue from the Commonwealth. The cuts will come from the city supplements. This will reduce employee salaries, resulting in turnover and morale. So if we take this and do this, and we take all of this fluff out of this new courthouse that we have here, then we could be in the supplements, because that's the only way he can pay for it. Because anything outside of that, we're going to have a TV bonanza. We're going to have prisoners not being fed, and they're going to say, well, council cut the budget so they can't eat but 1 meal a day, all of that kind of foolishness. So we got to make sure that we cover those things. But the supplements, as well as the city-funded positions, and even if you look at the city-funded position that we have, you'd have thought we'd have went out and got some of the newer people and lower paid. They're not. I mean, they're not the highest paid, but you would think if he's trying to help the city and trying to go out and get contractors to work the front desk and all of those, none of that stuff is going on. And this is now, we're going into what, our 3rd year with this courthouse?
So are we at that 1.7 or the 3 million that was?
Well, probably the one, I would say the 1.4 here, I think I'd be safe with without touching the supplements. But I would want to see those prisoners moved over to that regional jail. And then I would want, if they won't, I would recommend that we take all of the supplement.
Okay.
So I guess my proposal would be to just back out the numbers here. And that came up to right at about $1 million. Was that about $1 million when I talked?
When you're saying back out the positions, you're talking
all
about
of the city-funded positions that we have there, except for the maintenance guy. I think that was the only thing that was justifiable.
There's 26 local funded positions. One of those is the maintenance, so there's 25, 18 corrections officers, and 7 civilian courthouse people. The salaries for all 26 is about $784,417. And just,
including benefits?
Well, if you do an approximate 30%, you're talking another 235. So you're talking about $1 million, but that it does include the maintenance position in there.
So if we
So you back out
okay,
that.
so if we back out the one maintenance position, I'll let you speak. We back out the one maintenance, roughly we're talking $1 million initially to cut out of his budget. And then the other supplement money, which equates to about another $500,000 if he does not comply with us. again, this is a tough decision, but when you don't want to be holding deputies responsible because the sheriff won't do it, but it's his call, and it's our call on how we allocate the local funding. So I think it's only right that we do something to get him in compliance, or just give him whatever the state funds him and whatever we're obligated to do, and remove all of our local money. And I think you had on your list here, we had a local match of all in about 6 million, close to $7 million. See, there's a telephone fund in here with $108,000. We're doing a $108,000 telephone fund. What is that?
Probably a fund where the inmates make telephone calls.
I'm sure it is, but it's been accumulated up to $108,000. What?
Yeah.
So we turning it into a profit center on the inmates?
There should be a revenue to offset that.
That is the revenue.
Right.
That is the revenue.
That's the revenue.
Revenue.
It's probably one of the few things in the city that's turning a profit, huh?
So that's my point. And so, I mean, I would say from what we're trying to do here, I would want to take at least $1 million out and then hold the other $500,000 for the supplements if he does not comply. And then let that be between him and his staff. And if he doesn't comply, because I think there's enough in his 161 positions that he can use those people to handle these. And I think we can use the video teleconferencing and stop transporting these people back and forth. And again, where are these people at after 12 o'clock and after 2 o'clock when there's absolutely nothing going on? And these people are being paid till 5 o'clock. Okay, Mr. Moody.
I was here, I don't know if you were here, Elizabeth, when this was put together.
I was here too.
I think, the bishop was here. I think before you decide for the judges that you're going to have video conferencing in the courtrooms, as I recall, they had a say-so in a lot of those security decisions. So I wouldn't make a lot of assumptions.
They're all in favor.
On what you've talked to all the judges.
They're all in favor. They're already doing it for the other cities.
Yeah.
The other cities are doing it to reduce costs.
I'm talking about our courthouse.
Our courthouse.
Not the
You
other
have other
cities.
ones coming here that need to be transported in, and they're doing it. We're just not doing it here with our sheriff and the local folks.
Who's the
Okay.
we?
And so we need to look at, and I think we put $300,000 in the new courthouse to put that technology in there. So we need to utilize it. And if that saves us 8, 10, 14 positions here, I think we need to, don't you agree that would?
I don't agree with your
Okay.
numbers at all.
Okay.
I think you're shooting off
From the
the
hip.
cuff, and you're using a 3 or 4 year old study that I don't think that was the final worksheet that we worked off of. And the fact is that moving 50 bids to the regional will end up costing us probably $1 million, given the per diem difference that we will give up. And the fact that the regional is, $58.08 per day, per inmate. And I think they've been going up about 5% a year. And I think the cost on us housing an inmate is about $29. So I think your math is fuzzy math. I think you're making a lot of assumptions that aren't accurate.
So where are all these people that we sent over there and they're still there? And let me ask you this, when he took over the booking and the intake, and when he dropped that about 4 years ago, none of those people were removed from his role. We went to the police department and had the chief stand up. How many people did we hire to do that? About 10, 8 or 10 people? 10. So you had to go hire 10 people to handle booking and intaking, and we had to buy equipment. So if he had to go get 10 people and the sheriff had 10 people, and his role didn't reduce, where are those 10, Bill?
Let's see if we got a consensus before we spend another hour on this.
I'm just saying, those are the types of things, and it's not fair to the rest of the city that we do not address this issue and address it with this budget. Mr. Meeks.
One thing I like to see that if we could get a census on is that per diem that he did bring up, where we're paying the regional jail. to come back because it would be revenue that we could use.
And the per diem falls the inmate. How you gonna get? You can't get the per diem.
That's part of the service agreement of the
If
regional.
the inmate is in the regional jail, the per diem, they're not gonna give the per diem to us if the inmate is in the regional jail.
We're paying them 50. We're paying them 50.
That's right, we sacrificed the per diem.
Still paying.
You're paying.
You're-
Your contract says $54, $56 per inmate. Plus, it don't say plus the contract does not say.
It doesn't matter.
plus.
The per diem gonna go where the inmate goes. Okay.
That's because we agreed to send it over there. That's the only reason.
No.
Yes.
Hold it, go
No.
ahead.
No. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about.
Here.
Each jail throughout the Commonwealth has to do a daily count, and the count is based on who is in that jail at that point in time, and that's how your per diems are determined.
I.e., the
state per
per diem
diems.
follows the inmate.
Follows the inmates.
Period. Like I said.
And that's the same for all 5 members of the regional jail.
Yeah.
So the deal is, Mayor,
Yes.
those beds we're paying for, they need to be filled. So if he's not going to fill those beds, that money, that $413,000, we do need back because we're paying for them both places. He just got to fill the beds. He fill the beds, this goes away. If he doesn't, we got to get that money back because we cannot afford to spend a penny, almost three-quarters of a penny on our tax rate for empty beds.
Yes.
That's why I am on the mayor. The other money is better, but the bed part I am on because we are paying that per diem over there for nothing.
Mr. Mayor, I recall when we were debating that issue about how many deputies he needed, and we counted in collaboration with what the judges wanted at that time, too. That's why we granted it. My concern is similar to Councilman Cherry's concern. We have to pay for 250 beds at the regional jail regardless, whether they're there or not. We lose on the end when they're not there. So I think it's important and prudent that we make sure that the 250 beds are taken because we are in a contract agreement where we have to pay it anyway. And I think that would satisfy a lot of things too, because I think it would cause maybe some deputies might have to go as a result of filling the beds over at the regional jail.
It's roughly, if I'm not mistaken, about a 5-to-1 ratio. So for every 5 inmates, there's 1. But that's the state money piece that he has, and the 161 people that they're utilizing to wherever they want to utilize. I'm saying there's some duplication.
If he's not filling 50 beds, he's got to let 10 people go.
Right. Or do what he did with them, the ones that were doing the intake. We still don't know where those 10 went. He just stopped doing the intake, but they're still here. My point is the state comp board has these positions that he's asked us for. He's already getting paid for those. And my question is, where are the transportation folks that's in his 161 that the state is paying for? Where are the deputies for the holding cells? Where are all those? Because it was all presented as this is what we need. We pretty much gave him the maximum of everything.
Yeah, we did.
And
We all agreed.
I'm saying that's not his fault. That's our fault for doing that. I'm saying it's time to readdress that. We all were a part of that. Okay? And to not go and get contract folks to work the scanners, I mean, $20,000 maximum.
Excuse me.
And you can get retired cops or anybody want to come in there to work that and will do a good job because they've already got that training. We have not even entertained that. We continue to have fully sworn, staffed folks up there that are getting not only, and if you look at this salary here, on an average of about $35,000, and then you tack on another 35% for benefits. So that's how much you're paying for somebody standing at that front door when you can get a contract person for half, and no benefits and none of those other things. That's a normal. Yes, Vice Mayor.
I would say 2 things. Number one, if this, the only thing I will agree with you on right off the bat, the circuit court rooms have gone down to 4. And they're not going up. So if we need to reduce 2 deputies because the circuit court has changed, I don't have any problem with that. All of the math involved in all of this courthouse security, I don't think it does any of us any good to have this conversation with each other. We can all study all the forms we want. I know when this all came out, we all agreed that this was what the sheriff needed, this is what the sheriff wanted, we had the judges, we had a court order, everybody was happy. If we want to talk about how this needs to be changed or rearranged, I think we need to have a sit-down conversation with the sheriff and his staff, not with the TV camera and other city department heads that have nothing to do with this. I think that's a conversation we need to have with the sheriff if we want to know the details. I'm still very confused on these beds of the regional jail. And I understand we pay for them, take them or use them. Take them or leave them, we still pay for them. But I'm still unclear that if these people are in the Portsmouth City Jail, we get additional funding from the Commonwealth of Virginia when they sleep in our beds. And so don't we lose that money if they go to the regional jail? Am I...
We won't need it because we're not feeding them and housing them. So you don't pay for a hotel room, you don't sleep in a hotel.
Yeah, but those contracts aren't let where the food service company lowers their price because you've got 50.
It's not per head.
It's not per head. Same way with laundry. Those are fixed costs up to a point. And reducing it by 50 inmates, all of a sudden your contract doesn't change.
The $400,000 was our cost, the local cost of housing those 43 in the city jail.
Yeah, we're doing a great job.
You know, is there not, yeah, you're right. If we don't house those in the city jail, then we also don't get any state per diem.
We don't need it.
But it's, you know.
Does one negate the other?
No.
No.
No, because you got to pay for the regional jail regardless.
I mean, the per diem, the state per diem that comes to the regional jail is, you know, is included in the calculation of their cost and how they're allocated to all 5 cities. So, I mean, if we all said we wanted our own shares of the state per diem, then our local per diem cost would go up.
What do you have to say about the cost of housing an inmate there at 5808 versus the cost of housing an inmate at our jail?
I just know that the DOC estimation of what the cost to house an inmate in the city jail is I think it was in the $50 range. I can't remember what it was, but that was calculated on what is the local share and the state share of that inmate. So they're about comparable, but you know, it just
but not equal.
Well, the total amount of housing them are in an order of magnitude similar, but you know, who pays what share is the difference.
The biggest difference in the cost is the medical cost. The regional jail is basically a hospital that takes the sickest, and they also take the hardest to handle. So the medical cost there is what really increases that per diem. And the other thing is that because it's a newer jail and a different type of jail, the calculation of the money and the number of people you get from the comp board is a little different than it is at the local jail. So it's not an equal in terms of number of people and number of dollars. So those are two of the factors that go into the difference of, if you look at our local jail cost, and we can get you that based, each of them has to do a state jail cost allocation thing every year.
I think we need to see that.
And the dollars, that's the big difference, is the medical. And we can
And
show
they're
you
set
that.
up there, and they got an excellent facility. I don't know if you're going over there to see that. And we're keeping our sickies over here.
I agree with Elizabeth when we're talking about security. I don't think we need to be talking to the TV camera, and I think the sheriff needs to, or some of his people need to be at the table in that discussion, and probably a representative from the judges, the chief judge. needs to
I thought the,
Anybody else
in
want
that conversation.
Yes, sir, Dr.
I thought the consultant had taken that into account.
Sure he did.
With the judge from what was read. I don't have any problems with it because I think with the objective report from the consultant and also the information that we've received, I have a issue with those with the allocation of pay there that can't continue to support that type of inequity.
Where's the inequity?
Where you have persons who are being paid at arbitrary amounts. And I believe the mayor asked that question during the council meeting about how is that supplement dispersed. And I don't think it's consistent with what that's showing.
If you take this number that he gave us, this list, and go through here, you would be as concerned as we are. Okay, and the city dollars bill.
I looked at that list, Mayor. Okay. Let's,
So you got anything else before I go around? Because now what I'd like to propose from budgeting, because he needs numbers and we need them to go back and do money. I want to propose that we take $1 million out of his budget and allow you guys to use that million to be able to fix whatever we added in these other positions and all, and give him the next week or two, if he want to sit down with myself and the manager and the CFO, and he can bring whoever he want to be able to explain this, and anybody, other person on council, since you don't want to have this discussion on television. Okay? And if he does not come and give us a breakdown of accountability where every one of these people are, what they're doing at 8 o'clock in the morning and at 9 o'clock in the morning, all the way to 5 o'clock, that see all of these 189 people, I'm going to propose that we keep the $1 million in cut. So if you want to have a conversation with him, I don't mind that, but they need something to work with. And there's at least $1 million in his negligence with the regional jail and all of this fluff and these people standing around in the court piece.
Negligence?
Yes.
That's a pretty powerful word.
40 inmates not over and we paying for it. What word would you want to use?
Let's see if we got a consensus to move forward.
What word do you want to use?
I wouldn't say the sheriff was negligent.
I think he's been negligent with doing what we asked. All right, so where are we at? Let's go around the room.
What are we taking a consensus about?
Taking a consensus to give the staff authorization to use $1 million out of his budget, okay, to use into their calculations of whether or not we fund those things, whether we go out and ask the public for an increase or not, and use that as a placeholder for whatever overruns we have. I would like to do this without going out and asking for an increase.
So you wouldn't want to talk to the sheriff first before?
But they're going to be at a standstill until we set up a meeting and go through that whole circus. These people need something to be doing tonight. They need to be number crunching. Next week, we ratify this budget. So they need to leave out of here with marching orders tonight.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
On Paige's recommendation, it was $500,000.
413.
Right.
All right.
We knew that.
Is that where you still are?
Yep. That's the bids in the regional jail.
Right. Okay.
Fill those bids and you go.
Gave us some information along with the
I
sheriff.
had something else, man, not
okay.
related to the jail.
Okay, well, let's go round the piece. I mean, we got to get them some direction. They got to know where there's money. Right now in these budgets, there's no cut on his end, nothing. Okay, nothing.
Well, with Paige's recommendation,
Yeah, well, right, but his recommendation was on the other sheet. Right now, we say we were going with this sheet, and we done added in and baked all these numbers in, and we still don't have anything here with the sheriff. And we clearly know that there's overages. So they need something in here. $1 million, $750,000. We need something, and then put the onus on us to come justify these folks. And if they don't do it, we go with whatever we got in here. But we can't hold them up. So they need a cut. So is there a number you want to get a consensus on, or
I'm fine.
is there a consensus of making the cut?
I'm fine with what was proposed.
Okay. Bishop.
I'd like to say that if we're going to do this, I think we ought to at least you ought to talk to the sheriff about it. And then we can have a consensus on probably going around and doing as you've asked. I just feel like just to do this right like that, it's going to cause some repercussions that we don't need.
There's a half, he need a number to use in his budget. So you're in favor of using anything or don't touch the sheriff's budget is what you're saying?
No,
You
I'm in
think?
favor of going through it and using it, yeah.
Okay, so
because
we
he
need to
can-
give him some number. If it's
he-
not, the $500,000 is what he's costing us just by the non-compliance with the regional
Okay,
jail.
so we're looking at a number that we're asking him to give up?
I'm saying the $500,000 with the regional jail that he's costing us, and the $700,000 in here that he's costing us with all of these overstaffed positions, that equates to a little over $1 million. I'm saying we, for budgeting purposes, take $1 million out of his local assessment and allow them to use that to balance all the other things we just said tonight. And if he comes back and it's not $1 million, the better number is 700,000 after completing a conversation with myself, the manager, and the CFO, then we'll bake that number back in.
So you'll have some dialogue with him?
We'll have
as to
some
the
dialogue
number?
with him and give him an opportunity to come and go through his entire
And
staff.
so the whole thing could be changed then?
Well, it could be, but they need some number to go with. We already know we need at least 750.
Well, I can agree with
somewhere.
that.
So we'll go with $1 million, and then if there's some adjustment, tweaking, once we get done with the numbers, we can do that. Brandon, you're smiling.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not.
We're
It's
going
not my
around the
place to
room.
count votes, but I'm looking for
All right,
direction.
so you're
from
okay
the
with the $1 million?
Yeah,
Dr. Edmonds.
providing that there's some dialogue.
There's some dialogue, and we're gonna have that. I'll meet with him tonight if we have to.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Dr. Edmonds, you're okay with this too?
Nah.
You're not, Danny?
Nah.
You're not, okay, I am 3.
No.
You're not?
What the bishop said.
Yeah, okay, it's 4 of us say do it.
$1 million?
$1 million, $1 million.
Cool question.
Okay.
Another concern of mine.
Okay.
I was on the list, I didn't go back. You know, we're talking about consolidating all these parks and recs stuff and putting all these things that depends on it.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna do all that, we can't cut parks and recs to $143,000.
I mean, because you're gonna have some sloppage in there just in the transition.
So how they gonna make that work without if we cut them?
Could you, Director, you wanna speak to that? Is there,
It's going to be difficult.
stand up.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. It's going to be difficult because we're talking about larger facilities. I mean, the Pines itself is 30,000 square feet. So even if I close down Parker and Port Norfolk, I'm still going to need additional people because they're 3 separate buildings. So that's going to be a little difficult.
So
Yeah, I'm thinking Parker maybe, but Port Norfolk, do you really think folks are gonna come away from that area to go over there? I mean, I'm trying to say.
remember you're moving senior station over there?
Yeah, we're moving the senior station over there.
You're moving.
Right, they're going Monday, but what, the Port Norfolk piece though, is it?
Port Norfolk, I don't think they're going to travel all the way from Port Norfolk to that facility. I
Right,
think
and we
it's
don't
too
want
far.
those kids to
JFK
be
is
at
gone, right?
disadvantage.
JFK, yes, sir, that's a Head Start center.
JFK is gone,
So that's gone.
so they're coming to, so that's the Pines.
They're going there now. But I think Port Norfolk needs to stay.
Well, that's what my point is. I think we're gonna put those kids at a
We have a lot of
disadvantage.
Well, you can't cut it then. You're gonna leave Port Norfolk open. You can't take the cut out of Parks and Recs. How you gonna staff it?
How much is it in that?
143,000.
143. Mr. Manager, can we put that back on the wish list?
Sure can. It's just going back. 143?
For Parks and Rec.
That's line 29.
Okay.
We don't start, we're gonna be back at the beginning.
I got one concern. Hold on. Okay.
No, I mean, that's a good idea, because if you're gonna make that transition, there's gotta be some transitional costs in there. You may be able to save it the following year, but you wanna make
But we
sure.
won't know this until next year though. And she can come back
Hold on.
8 months from now and give us an evaluation,
Update, yes, sir.
see where we are, but I don't want to cut your feet from out on you before you get a chance to walk.
All right, Mayor.
Yes.
All right, now let's talk about the 900-pound elephant. You cut the sheriff's budget $1 million.
Okay.
Is it some cuts in there? I do agree with it. I think me and you talked about it. All right, $1 million. What's gonna happen? We done froze his vacancies. I mean, so he can't hire nobody. He's gonna take 14, 16 inmates working, and I know what you're getting ready to say, Paige.
You don't know what I'm going to say. You can't read my mind, Mr. Biggs.
You
You're
can't
not
be
that smart,
scared
trust
of
me.
him, of whatever decision he's got to deal with it.
That's right.
And I understand that. But at the same time, we got to be able to pick up trash. The money we take from him, we're going to have to give it back to vacancy so he can fill those positions.
We've already made a vote.
Mr. Mix, the only money I was really concerned about is the inmates. He's filled those beds in the regional jail, and all my issues go away.
Yeah, but
But I'm not going to pay for 250 beds that are empty.
But we agreed to take $1 million.
The sheriff can come to us and make all of those explanations, and anything that's warranted, then we will bring that back to the council, okay?
All right.
We are paying way too much for his free services, okay? And it's high time we stop paying that much for free services. Okay. Anything, staff, are we?
But will you guys commit to having that meeting like this
Absolutely,
this
we
week?
want to call him
Yes.
tonight.
Okay.
He's probably outside the door.
I'm sure he'll want to meet with you. You especially, Mayor.
Just as some broad calculation on what a 3% general wage increase equals is 3 cents. A 2% general wage increase is 2 cents. Adding back to wherever we are.
2 cents, you mean on the tax roll, you're
Yes,
saying?
sir.
Does
Okay,
that
so,
include the COLA also? Or is that just the raise?
Yes, that included a COLA on retirees.
so we're talking $1.2 million for the 3 cents. I say we put the 3 cents in there.
2% of
No, we're talking, for 3 cents was 2.1 million.
add a 2 cents.
I'm sorry, for 3%, general wage increase was about $2.1 million.
2.1 million for 3% increase.
Yes.
And the 2%,
1.4 million
1.4.
or 2 cents.
What did we decide on the $1 million in addition that the state is giving the schools?
Hold on, let's answer
Not doing
this, and then
anything
I'll
wrong.
open it back up for that. You wanna, so where we at? We wanna give them as much direction as we can tonight. We wanna go with the 2 instead of the 3. He said 2% is roughly 1.4 million, and a 3% is roughly 2.1. So can we go with 2, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I can go
2,
with it.
Dr., okay. All right, bake in 2%.
Yes, sir.
Do you have does he have a ballpark figure of how much the items we put back in have totaled?
Yes, sir. Well, I did until we added the Parks and Rec. So we added in roughly 1.1 million, and we took out at 1.5 in risk management. Well, that's a rough calculation. So there was a net reduction from this 4.2 cents that we started at in that column.
So we're still.
But, and then the sheriff's number was an additional roughly $0.015.
Okay.
Okay, so
So, I mean, and that's, and the Sports Hall of Fame is in, and I included that
In the cuts or in the save?
in this, it's being funded.
Okay,
So-
that's what I
so-
should.
Is it our collective view that we wanna leave out of here with no increase?
I don't think that's going to be possible. I don't think that's
No,
gonna be po- I don't think that's
you're
gonna be
over
possible.
4 cents right
It's not
now.
going to be
That's not
possible.
possible.
Even if we,
I don't think it's, based on what we did tonight, I don't think we'll be able to go with no increase, but we might be able to get out of here for 4 or less.
You're over 4 cents right
We
now.
over 4 already?
4.2 by.
I'd like to see no increase.
You're at 5 or 6.
Is
Below
that
6
including
anyway.
the stuff that Paige brought in?
yeah, no, I don't think so, because there's
Yeah,
other
I
stuff
mean,
in here. You still
yeah.
got the Sports Hall of Fame in here, you got several other things
Bullets
in
are still
here.
there.
You got the bullets still
Yeah.
here. You got several things still in here that if you wanna go in there and take out, you can take out.
I mean, equalization's 4.5 million.
that's
Oh,
Don't use that number.
I read that.
I mean, it was used as in the manager's message to describe, to equate what, if we had been equalizing all this time, but it,
Well, and that was
Don't try to use
disingenuous
that
too,
as
because Ken Chandler did equalize. He did, he eliminated positions, he did furloughs,
Did all
he
that.
did everything he could. So to say we haven't done that in 5 years is flat out.
Disingenuous.
well, I'm just saying from
It's-
the
it's
standpoint of
not-
this
it's not true.
argument, we can't count that.
So,
just for this argument.
but listen,
All right, I got you.
you guys wrote the message, and this is what it said. the tax increase, 17 cents. It said 10 cents schools, 4 cents equalization, 2 cents flat revenue, and 1 cent CIP.
That's
But
right.
then you're gonna tell me you can cut CIP, you can cut school, but you can't cut equalization? I didn't write that. It was on the screen. It's
That
in the-
was John,
And it's in the budget message right here in this book.
I understand.
So I didn't make that up. I didn't brief it. Y'all put it together. So don't
Yeah,
put
but
it out there and
that's
say
John's
you can cut
direction.
these and you can't cut that.
That's John's direction, though. We gotta make sure we understand.
No, I do understand it.
Okay.
Perfectly. That's the problem.
Right.
You didn't expect nobody to understand it.
Well, that's John's direction. We can't beat Brandon up for doing what his boss told him.
But he keeps referring to him. And
So is there
which is a
anything else we
mistake,
want to
by the
go
way.
in here and add to that? Because the 4 cents, I'd like to get that down. I think,
Well, I'm not clear, what's your total? I didn't hear what your total is as far as when you add in all of these things that we discussed.
Sure. All right, I'll run down them. The clerk, adding back in the clerk of 18.8, the city attorney of 43,492 plus the new position of 156, because we said roughly 200,000 for the attorney. IT equipment was 201,400. Marketing communication, we added back in 75,000. We added 50,000 in for streets. We added 107,402 back in for museums. We added 20,000 in for the registrar. We added 87,474 for the treasurer. We added 20,699 for the circuit court
Let
clerk.
me think about something.
We added the 3 new positions that I'd cut out. We added those back in. And we added the Parks and Rec, 143,420. That's where I got roughly the 1.1 million that we added back in.
So that's that list comes to 1 point,
Yes, sir.
how much?
1.1 million. And then we increased the risk management by 1.5 million. So, I mean, that's going the opposite way because we, instead of saving 500,000, we said we're going to save 2 million. So, and then we added the sheriff. We're cutting $1 million out of the sheriff. So that's roughly a penny and a half. So that,
The salary back
and then
in
this,
there.
and then we added 2% general wage increase, which is 2 cents, and that's how I got to about 4.2. but
How much
that's
does the general wage increase come to? Well, we don't know how much of that is.
$1.4 million or 2 cents.
But some of that is police and.
No,
It's not,
that's
okay.
that's only the.
So you said that's how much,
$1.4 million or 2 cents, roughly.
okay, Mr. Chair.
When he's running his list, it made me think about something that I read. I was reminding me. Mr. Brandon, you got your budget there? Yeah, page 18-29.
29?
1829?
Because we talked about increasing the museums by $50,000. What's the difference in this 2.3,
18 what?
18-29 at the top of the page under 0701? And the 15 amended is for the museums is 1.8 million, and the FY16 is 2.3.
Well, if you look in the left-hand column there of this worksheet, it has.
Which line on
I'm
that
sorry.
worksheet?
It would be line 27. The manager's proposed budget is $2,327,361.
Okay.
And you can see that as the right-hand column on page 1829. That's the amount of the budget. So a 6.5% cut was factored off of that number.
I understand that. I'm saying why the increase from 1.8 to 2.3?
Because there were previously.
That's $432,000.
Yes, there were previously
Some donations.
operations like gift shop operations and memberships and things like that that were funded in the donations account. And we took that revenue out of the donations account, put it on the general fund side, and also put the expenditures that go with it on the general fund side in the general fund budget.
That's
So
a
that
floating
there's
number, because when I asked that question last month, it was $325,000, and now it's $432,000.
That's the difference between FY15 and FY16. Yes, Rob.
Mayor, when we're all said and done, and when we get past this forensic audit,
Forensic audit.
all right?
Anything else? I know this isn't budget, but I did mention in my email to each of you about us putting together a committee to look at closing this jail by the next fiscal year. And I think that needs to be done right away. The sooner the better, to put a team together to start looking into that. I mean, we all know where we're going with getting that jail off the waterfront.
I agree.
Anybody else? Danny? Not yet.
Give me,
I'll move you.
oh, Bill brought up, and I brought it up at the beginning. We agreed for level funding. What about the extra million coming from the state?
Oh, yeah, you did bring that up.
From where? I didn't hear that.
From the state, swapping the million for a million, because it's still level funding, and
Well, what, if we stay level funding and we can use that and not raise taxes, I might be open, because we did say level funding.
Well, we said don't touch the schools.
Well, don't touch
we
the
knew about the $1 million coming from the state.
I'm trying to get not raising taxes.
Oh, I know
If we
that.
ain't gonna raise them, then.
I know that, but we said not to touch it.
You said that.
No, we took a consensus.
Yeah.
And we said don't touch it. And we knew about the $1 million state funding at that time. So let's see what he comes back with.
Well, I'm not going to come back with anything. You gave me a consensus not to touch it, so I
Well,
haven't
can
done
we-
it.
As far as what you're going to come
can we
back
take the
with.
census of the $1 million?
That was already,
That's
Wasn't that the millions in play?
That was
because of
already in
additional
it.
work?
Not touching schools, I mean.
that was already included.
Not,
Dr. Evans, leave the million along with the schools?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Then,
yes, and mess with, take the million.
should take it.
Take
Take it, okay. I say no.
Take it.
Take it.
No.
Page, okay. All right, leave the million alone. All right. Anything else?
I do have a
We
question.
good? Oh,
I have a question.
okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, one thing we need to take into consideration is we're hiring a new city manager, or we're putting it out there. And he's going to be coming in some financial strains here. And I know, he's going to be hired and he's got a year to figure it out. I mean, I just want y'all to make sure y'all understand what we're doing, so.
I just have a question. Mr. Godfrey,
Yes, sir.
based on what we
But we're worried about
discussed,
superintendent.
what we discussed tonight, we opened up with Mr. Cherry's baseline budget, and I thought we said that was a 15.85 cents
Yes.
reduction.
Yes.
sir.
And then we said the risk management piece, we could take out 1.5 million.
Yes, sir. An additional 1.5, yes. Sir.
Right, so that was another 2 cent reduction. And then we said waste management, $1 million, that was another cents. And the CIP bond was a cent. And then the sheriff was another cent. So it comes to 21.02 cents.
Okay.
All right, and then
And that's pretty close to what I said. I think we're at a 4-cent tax rate, more than a 4-cent tax rate increase. So 21 and 17, that's the same difference.
okay, and so
We're on the same, roughly, same sheet of music.
okay. So I just want to make sure with these, that's what you're working off of.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One's adding up and the other one's subtracting.
Okay.
I think we're getting to the same place.
Okay. All right. I'm clear.
Oh, mine's clear? All right, well, half of us here. We're adjourned. Thank y'all. How soon can you get something back to us, Brandon?
Pardon me?